Chapter 4734. Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly stepped into the air. Wu Chei's cheeks were empty. The tightness in her throat made her face pale as she groaned in pain. Chair. Elder Wu wanted to chase after her. Fiery red flames flashed past her eyes. The young lady was already standing firmly on the back of the vermilion bird. The colorful phoenix feathers were dotted with the burning flames. A slight touch. It was very possible that it could burn a person instantly. Without Tong Ziqing around, Yiqing Luo could totally let the flames engulf those witchcraft worms without any scruples. But the speed of the witchcraft worms' spread was too fast. The flames could at most burn the witchcraft worms on the battlefield. But towards the witchcraft worms that had already rushed towards the city gate, it had no effect. Yiqing Luo grabbed Wu Chei's neck unhurriedly and looked down at Elder Wu. Actually, no matter what choice you make today, there is only one answer. Wu Chei must die. She tilted her head and smiled. No one could tell that she was still grabbing someone's neck and discussing his life and death. Her words were not without reason. Wu Chei was in her hands. In order to balance Elder Wu, she naturally could not let Wu Chei go. And on the other side, Gu Jingyu had obviously done something to Wu Chei and could decide his life and death. If Elder Wu chose her words, Gu Jingyu would kill Wu Chei directly. And if Elder Wu chose Gu Jingyu, she would also kill Wu Chei directly. It was just a matter of who died in whose hands. The result would not change. You. Elder Wu obviously thought of the content of Yiqing Luo's unfinished words. Her expression was extremely ugly. His murky old eyes were completely red, almost about to collapse. The way she bared her teeth and glared at him made her originally hideous face look even more terrifying. Yiqing Luo, once something happens to Chei, you will lose the support to threaten me. Elder Wu's words were filled with bone-chilling coldness. Yiqing Luo, do you believe that I will let the cultivators from the two realms and that little blue dragon be buried together with Chei? Elder Wu originally thought that a young lady like Yiqing Luo, if he gave her a scare, she would naturally be moved. But he had not expected Yiqing Luo to be totally impervious to everything. Even when the sky was filled with witch-goo insects, his expression did not change. Could it be, what other tricks does she have up her sleeve? No, impossible. She was the only one who could solve the problem of witchcraft. Except for her. No one could save that blue dragon. Didn't Yiqing Luo care a lot about that blue dragon? How could he bear to let the blue dragon die with him? But at this moment, a clear and cold voice suddenly rang out. Really? I may have to disappoint you. With us around, your so-called witchcraft will become useless. As the voice spread across the battlefield, it grew louder and louder. A few black figures descended from the sky. The person in the lead was a woman dressed in a rarely seen famous clan's attire. She had a dignified aura. Her slender eyebrows were filled with the bearing of a superior. When she appeared, the expression on Venerable Wu's face changed drastically. For a moment, he stood rooted to the ground in shock, not daring to utter a single word. And behind that woman were two old men dressed in the same style of attire. Beside that old man were a few familiar figures. When those few figures entered the world group site, everyone in the world group were so agitated that they almost jumped up. Shout-y, Jinzi! Instantly, it dispelled everyone's heavy mood because of the witchcraft insects. This book came from Chapter 4735. She clenched her slender fingers tightly and temporarily stopped tangling with the black-robed man as she commanded the scarlet flame to spit out raging flames. The raging flames had a purifying effect. As long as it was tainted with the evil chi of the Nether Palace or the witchcraft evil chi, it would be purified. The raging flames burned the ground. Those cultivators from both sides who were corroded by the goo worms were instantly burnt into ashes. Wails and screams were heard one after another. The goo worms on the ground also stopped wriggling under the burning of the open flames. It also gave the other cultivators who had not been corroded by the goo worms a chance to breathe. The black-robed man laughed softly when he saw this. "Do you think you can stop me like this?" The black-robed man didn't take the opportunity to approach her. Instead, he calmly stepped on the profound chi that gathered in the air. His sleeves moved. A blue figure suddenly flew out from the heaven realm and was sucked into the black-robed man's palm. The black-robed man lifted that person up as his lips curled into a cold and sinister arc. "Yiqing Luo, I know your weakness too well now. Can you still continue to let your scarlet flame release its raging flames without any scruples?" That figure that was lifted up high was reflected in Yiqing Luo's eyes. The action of commanding the scarlet flame to spit out raging flames suddenly stopped. Her eyes widened as the veins on her forehead popped out. Ziqing, the person who was pinched in the black-robed man's hand, was Tong Ziqing. She was in a sorry state and was riddled with injuries as she hung in the black-robed man's hand. And there was fresh blood that flowed down her fingertips. What made Yiqing Luo's eyes widen as she bared her teeth in anger was Tong Ziqing's current state was like those beast puppets who were controlled by witchcraft. No, it was different. Those cultivators who were corroded by witchcraft only had endless killing and bloodthirst in their eyes. They were like wild beasts. As for Tong Ziqing, although her eyes were filled with a thick, bloodthirsty aura, but her actions didn't look like a beast. But Tong Ziqing could feel the power from the witchcraft. If the raging flames continued to burn, the black-robed man threw Tong Ziqing into the fire. Tong Ziqing would also be burnt to ashes. Damn it! Yiqing Luo stopped the scarlet flame as her face turned slightly pale. She gritted her teeth and looked at the black-robed man. "Release Ziqing." Ziqing followed Zhu Wuxin and disappeared. Yiqing Luo could more or less guess that Tong Ziqing could possibly be made use of by the secluded palace. However, there was still some hope in his heart. Unexpectedly, the secluded Darkness Palace finally caught Tong Ziqing. The blazing flames were extinguished, and the witchcraft and goo worms crawled around wantonly again. On the battlefield, screams rang out incessantly. "Madam D! Help! Help! Madam, save us! We don't want to die!" "Monarch, madam, you can't kill all of us for a woman." Those people were begging for help in panic. To deal with these witchcraft goo worms, only Yiqing Luo's battle pet could do so. However, no matter how much they screamed at the top of their lungs, Yiqing Luo wasn't moved at all. Her icy cold eyes were fixated on the black-robed man without blinking. She could not ignore Tong Ziqing's life and death. Tong Ziqing was her brother. Everyone in the world group looked at Tong Ziqing and Yiqing Luo with complicated feelings. The world and righteousness, two difficult choices. No matter which side they chose, their hearts would be uneasy. "Ha ha! Yiqing Luo, your weakness is that you are too easily controlled by others." The black-robed man looked at the miserable screams and curses below, looking at the young lady's solemn and cold look, as he couldn't help but laughed out loudly. Chapter 4736. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she continued to smile. "You're from the God realm, and you may have lived for tens of thousands of years. I'm just a little lass from the Nirvana realm. Isn't it normal that I can't kill you?" She paused for a moment, and her smile became nasty. "On the other hand, you, as a big shot of the God realm, you are helpless against a little girl from the Nirvana realm like me. Should I laugh at your incompetence, or should I laugh at your incompetence?" Trying to provoke her with sarcasm? "Huh!" Yiqing Luo scoffed softly as a cold glint flickered in her long and narrow eyes. It was rare for the person behind the Dark Palace to appear personally. How could she let the people behind the scenes of the Nether Palace leave so easily? Seeing that the situation isn't right, you run away with your tail between your legs. The young girl's mocking laughter was filled with ridicule. The God world is only SOSO. The expression of Gu Jingyu became increasingly gloomy. Looking at Yiqing Luo's gaze, it was filled with viciousness. However, he quickly restrained himself. Her quiet and cold eyes were like a treacherous and cold, eerie color. Yiqing Luo, you don't need to use words to provoke me. Gu Jingyu sneered. Now is just the beginning. Next is the real beginning of the game. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. Her long and narrow eyes were cold and gloomy. She moved her hand, and the glowing fan, which was as blazing as fire, spun on her fingertips, giving off a dazzling light. Boundless dark force was released from his body. She did not hesitate in the slightest. He leaped and attacked Gu Jingyu. But I don't intend to give you the chance to continue playing. The girl's cold voice revealed a hint of ruthlessness. The power of the divine artifact and the dark force intertwined. The young girl's aura seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth. Gu Jingyu was slightly stunned. The young girl's aura was like a rainbow, and her profound waves were sharp and fierce. The attack and speed caused him to frown and dodge to the side. At the bottom of his heart, he was extremely shocked by this earth-shattering change of the young girl. Unexpectedly, Yiqing Luo's adaptability was also this strong. He had just leveled up not long ago. He had almost overloaded his body due to the advancement of his profound strength. At that moment, he had fused that power with his body. Moreover, he was extremely proficient in using it. On top of that, the power of the divine artifact on her body had been strengthened. No matter how unwilling Gu Jingyu was to admit it, they had to admit it. The current Yiqing Luo, indeed, he was strong enough to fight with him. Yiqing Luo's attacks became even more ferocious. It was obvious that he was going all out to subdue the person behind the Palace of Darkness. Gu Jingyu wanted to leave, but Yiqing Luo was clinging onto him tightly, totally not giving him a chance to leave. Two figures were fighting each other in the dense forest. The sky was dark. He could not see it clearly at all. Profound lights flickered as a majestic aura spread across the battlefield. The commotion caused by the battle between the two sides naturally attracted the attention of the group of people on the battlefield nearby. When Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu were crossing hands on the battlefield, with the appearance of the witchcraft family, Venerable Wu had no room to retaliate. Or perhaps she had no intention of resisting. Back then, when she was chased out of the witchcraft family, she kept saying how much she hated the witchcraft family. But after so many years after seeing the witchcraft family for real, how could she really maintain her pride? When the witchcraft family's people used the iron chains to restrain Venerable Wu, he had no intention of struggling or resisting. This book came from Chapter 4737. It was only when he was taken away by the people from the voodoo family that he stopped in his tracks and said, "Can you bring Chair back with you?" The people from the witchcraft family looked at the girl in Miao Xuanxuan's hand and nodded. Miao Xianxian dragged her towards the world group's direction as her delicate little face was filled with seriousness. "You can't. This is someone whom Sister Qing Luo entrusted to me. I must take good care of her." "Young Miss Miao," the woman from the witchcraft family said calmly, "this lady is from the witchcraft family. No matter what she does, the witchcraft family will give a fair judgment." Miao Xuanxuan's tiny body stood in front of Wu Che. "Sister Qing Luo has handed him over to me, so I will take good care of him. If you insist on snatching him from my hands, then you can only do it yourself. Snatch him by force." The expression of the woman from the witchcraft family changed slightly, but her tone was still rather gentle. "Young Miss Miao, if your friend has any conflict with the witchcraft family will take responsibility." She paused and continued, "But right now, these two people are people who were expelled from the witchcraft family, and now they're related to the culprit behind the war between the two worlds, so no." Miao Xianxian shook her head persistently. "Everything. Wait for Sister Qing Luo to come back and tell her yourself." "Witchcraft family." An unfriendly voice came from behind Miao Xianxian. A woman in a light blue dress gently placed her slender hand on Miao Xuanxuan's shoulder and pulled both Miao Xianxian and Wu Che behind her. The woman looked gentle and harmless. However, her bright eyes were domineering and unreasonable. Does the witchcraft aristocratic family think that this matter can be resolved so easily? Miao Xianxian glanced at the woman beside her. She knew that this woman was called Yin Xiao Yi. He was a member of Sister Qing Luo's mercenary group and had a good relationship with her, even if they hadn't interacted much in the past. Perhaps they knew each other from their previous lives. Miao Xianxian was not disgusted by the intimacy of a woman. The witchcraft family frowned slightly. "Miss, what do you mean?" Yin Xiao Yi scoffed. "This grandfather and grandson pair have done so many heinous things with the Palace of Gloomy Shadows. You want to take them away, just like that? How are we going to explain this to those profound practitioners who died because of them?" The woman's voice was clearly not loud. His tone was full of questions. His aura was very oppressive. Also, Yin Xiaoyi's eyes slightly darkened. His eyes seemed to be covered with a thick layer of coldness. In this battle between the heaven and earth realms, how many profound practitioners were injured by the witchcraft insects refined by Elder Wu using the forbidden witchcraft insect? And our brothers in the world group, when the regiment commander was so young, he was poisoned with the heart-devouring goo. He had become a puppet of the Palace of Darkness, standing on the opposite side of them. And Ziqing. Earlier on, Ziqing had nearly injured the brothers of the world group. All of this was caused by Old Wu. What qualifications did the people of the witchcraft family have to snatch people from their hands? When Yin Xiao looked up again, the corners of her mouth curled into a mocking sneer. So, since the people from the Wu Gu family have acknowledged the identity of Elder Wu and Wu Gu, then don't you plan to clean up the mess they created? Not only they're the world group, there were also quite a number of witchcraft Gu that had already scurried towards the cities in the Earth domain. Apart from the Miaogu aristocratic family, only the witchcraft aristocratic family could help. This book comes from Chapter 4738. The few people from the witchcraft family's expressions didn't change. But looking at the battlefield, the stench of the witchcraft insects and the thick stench of blood made one feel nauseous. They knew very well. What had Old Wu used the witchcraft insects to do? Miao Xianxian took the chance and said, "Miao Gu family informed the witchcraft family about this matter because only you can solve this matter." The few people from the witchcraft family remained silent for a moment before they could open their mouths. They heard the world group side giving out a cry of shock. "Quickly look over there." Everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. Not far from the battlefield, there was a deafening explosion of profound light. Yin Xiaoyi's expression congealed. "Not good. Earlier Qing Luo went over there. Did something happen?" The world group exchanged glances. Following that, they quickly chased towards the direction of the dense forest. After a series of intimidating exchanges of profound energy, Yi Zichen's expression changed drastically. Gu Jingyu's expression turned increasingly grave. At this moment, not only were they shocked by Yi Qing Luo's acceptance towards profound energy cultivation, they were even more shocked that the young lady could use the god relic's energy so flexibly. Originally indifferent, she was gradually forced to be more serious. Both their palms collided. They retreated in unison. The entire forest trees were uprooted as the sky was filled with dust and soil. Yi Qing Luo stabilized her footsteps as the glower flame fan on her fingertips spun one round in her palm. Gu Jingyu also stopped his retreating footsteps as he slightly raised his eyes to look at her. In the depths of his eyes, there was a sinister aura that could not be seen clearly. "Do you think that by killing me, you will be able to save that little blue dragon of yours?" He sneered in disdain as he casually brushed away the fallen leaves on his body from the battle with Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's actions took a pause as her expression turned stern. "Looks like your energy has been exhausted." Gu Jingyu, his brows sunk slightly as a vicious aura grew. Yi Qing Luo naturally didn't miss out on this detail. Her slender eyes lifted up, and as the glint flickered, her lips curled into a bloodthirsty sneer. His expression had already explained everything. The appearance of the mastermind from the secluded palace had always made Yi Qing Luo suspicious. The mastermind from a secluded palace would basically not appear personally. But this time, they actually borrowed Gu Jingyu's body. This clearly meant that the person behind the scenes of the dark secluded palace was affected or had problems with his body. Furthermore, the way the mastermind of the Dark Ghost Palace used Gu Jingyu's body would greatly affect the mastermind of the Dark Ghost Palace. For example, the body is out of control. Furthermore, his own strength was not stable. After all, the mastermind of the Gloomy Palace did not possess Gu Jingyu's body. Through other mediums or consciousness. At this moment, it was the best way to control the people behind the Dark Palace. Even if it was just a wisp of consciousness or some other kind of power. That was very possible. Following this power, he had found the body of the person behind the scenes of the Dark Palace. This was the best time to destroy the person behind the palace of gloomy darkness. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up slightly as her figure once again headed towards the direction of Gu Jingyu. Her slender white fingers streaked across the azure dew bracelet on her wrist. There was a cold glint in his eyes. The azure dew bracelet began to glow with a scorching red light. A strand of profound energy was injected into Yiqing Luo's glabella. Yiqing Luo's profound energy suddenly exploded. His figure quickly approached Gu Jingyu. The instantaneous attack was so swift that no one could react in time. Gu Jingyu was just about to regain his senses. The young lady's icy cold fingers had already locked onto his neck. This book came from Chapter 4740. After the battle, he heaved a sigh of relief. The Brothers of the World group could finally crack a few jokes. Yiqing Luo unhappily pushed Gu Jingyu, who was leaning on her, towards Xiao Jin's side. Quickly catch him. Xiao Jin joked, but his body was honest. He walked over and took Gu Jingyu. The group of powerhouses following behind the World group had a huge change in expression when they saw Gu Jingyu. Emperor, madam. He is the Palace Lord of Gloomy Palace. He must be handed over to City Lord Xiao to be executed. The people of the major forces looked at Gu Jingyu with murderous eyes. It was as if he wanted to tear him into pieces. How could he not be angry? To the profound practitioners of the Earth Realm, Gu Jingyu was the main culprit who almost caused the land to be destroyed. Because of Gu Jingyu, they had lost their families, comrades, and friends. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo's attitude towards Gu Jingyu was unclear, he was afraid that the people from the major forces would have already rushed forward and torn Gu Jingyu into pieces. Madam, this person is the culprit who harmed our realm and reduced it to its current state. We must hand him over to City Lord Xiao to give everyone an explanation. He killed so many of our brothers. Also, the war between the heaven and earth realms was started by him. The people of the major forces were very excited. Their eyes were bloodshot. The World group immediately blocked in front of Yiqing Luo. His expression was cold as he looked at the people from the major forces with vigilance. Hearing the crowd raising their arms and cheering, Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change much. She just leaned against a tree and had no intention of handing Gu Jingyu over. She said in a faint voice, I caught him. Do you think I can hand him over just because you say so? If you're so capable, why don't you catch them yourself? The people of the major forces immediately choked on their words. The young girl tilted her head, her long and narrow eyes slightly curved, revealing a bit of coldness. I caught him. How I want to deal with him is my business. She looked towards the World group and waved her hand. Let's go back to the Qiao residence. She stood up and was about to walk forward. As soon as he exerted force on his feet, a wave of dizziness surged into his head. Yiqing Luo only felt her vision turning black. He lost consciousness uncontrollably. Before he fainted, Yiqing Luo's only thought was, Motherf asterisk her. It was a rare chance for him to act tough, but before he could finish, he had already collapsed. Did she not care about her pride? By the time Yiqing Luo opened her eyes again, she was already in the Qiao mansion, on her bed. Yan Xiao stood guard at the side. Hearing the commotion, he immediately stood up and looked over. Seeing that Yi-Ching Luo had indeed opened her eyes, she brought over a cup of water and passed it to the young lady. Bloodbone Barbaric King had come over to take a look, and you're fine. It's just that your profound energy and physical strength had been overdrawn, resulting in your body not being able to take it, so you collapsed. Yin Xiaoyi's tone was indifferent. However, he could hear the displeasure in her voice. Yi-Ching Luo drank a glass of water, and her throat felt slightly better. She put on a smile and said softly, "I know I shouldn't force myself. I was wrong, okay?" "You're not wrong. How could you be wrong?" Yin Xiaoyi put down the cup and sneered. "It's not the first time you've done this. Anyway, the Overlord isn't here, and none of us can control you." Yi-Ching Luo laughed softly. Her fair little hand held Yin Xiaoyi's hand and held it gently in her palm. "Under that kind of situation, I had no other choice. Moreover, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to face Gu Jingyu." Chapter 47-41. She drooped her eyelids. Her curly eyelashes were thick and long, casting a fan-shaped shadow on her eyelids. Looking at Yi-Ching Luo in this state, Yin Xiaoyi was feeling angry. She couldn't say anything. She held Yi-Ching Luo's hand and sat by the bedside. "Do you know how dangerous it is for you to do this? You're lucky that your profound energy didn't burst out and explode to your death." Yi-Ching Luo's other hand pinched Yin Xiaoyi's face. "You know, no matter what decision I make, I will absolutely not do it on impulse. I don't want to die." The anger in Yin Xiaoyi's heart completely dissipated from her pinching. She grabbed the hand on her face and brushed it away. "Don't lie down since you're awake. If you're any later, I'm afraid young sect master Gu won't be able to survive." Yi-Ching Luo's smiling brows instantly congealed. Those people still want to make an issue out of Gu Jingyu? Previously, in the forest of the battlefield, she had already made her words very clear. Those people actually had the audacity to have designs on Gu Jingyu. He is, after all, the palace lord of secluded palace on the surface. In everyone's eyes, he is the real culprit who started this war. Yin Xiao explained. In this war, both sides suffered heavy losses. It can be said that, in the next 50 years, the two realms will not have the ability to raise their battle flags. To everyone, Gu Jingyu was the enemy who killed their parents and relatives. He was the one who destroyed their family. How could they possibly dispel their hatred just because of a few sentences from Yi-Ching Luo? Yi-Ching Luo's eyes sunk. "How long have I been unconscious for? Where's Gu Jingyu?" "Not long, just one day and one night." Yin Xiao replied. "Now that City Lord Xiao is protecting Gu Jingyu, no one will act recklessly at this critical juncture, but..." She paused for a moment. The heaven and earth realms war had been burning for several days, and because of a common goal, they stopped fighting. So, City Lord Xiao has set up a simple banquet in Xiao residence to discuss with everyone regarding this war. Speaking of this, Yin Xiaoyi's brows creased slightly. "I reckon those people will ask City Lord Xiao for young sect Master Gu during the banquet." Yi-Ching Luo lifted the blanket and got off the bed. "Let's go take a look." This was a great war between the heaven and earth world. It started inexplicably. Now, it had come to an inexplicable end. All the profounders and powers were still in a dazed state, even when they sat face to face. Just a moment ago, both sides were fighting to the death. The next moment, they were sitting face to face, drinking and chatting. This change really made it hard for people to keep up with it. I'm afraid this was the first time something like this had happened since ancient times, right? In the garden behind the Qiao mansion, there was an outdoor banquet. The representatives of the major forces in the world filled the entire banquet. At a glance, there were at least 50 people. The entire garden was in an uproar as people discussed spiritedly. The people of the major forces were chatting with each other about the upcoming war. It could be considered harmonious. After 3 rounds of drinking, City Lord Xiao, although the palace master of the Palace of Darkness is Lady D's captive, we are the ones who have a deep grudge against the Palace of Darkness. Someone from the Heaven Realm said, with an unfriendly expression. City Lord Xiao, please hand over the palace master of secluded darkness palace to us." As soon as he said that, the noisy and enthusiastic banquet instantly quietened down. All of them looked towards City Lord Xiao, as though they were trying to probe his expression after he heard this sentence. Chapter 47-42. City Lord Qiao slowly put down the wine cup in his hand as his dignified face sunk slightly. That pair of eyes, which had been through the vicissitudes of life, was extremely sharp. Just one look was enough to make the atmosphere of the banquet turn heavy. Even the various powerhouses in Heaven Realm kept quiet, as they were stunned by this gaze. "The palace lord of the secluded palace is not in my hands." City Lord Xiao opened his mouth, and his voice was cold and dignified as he said each word. "As for the transactions and topics regarding the war between the two realms, if I can help, I will definitely do so. But—" His gaze slowly swept past those people who were jeering as he repeated, "But if all of you want the palace lord of the secluded palace, there's nothing I can do." Gu Jingyu was brought away by that bunch of youngsters from the World Group. All these were actually very clear to everyone present. They were also very clear that if those youngsters didn't have Yi Qing Luo's orders, they would absolutely not hand Gu Jingyu over. Could it be that they could snatch him? It was impossible to snatch him away. During the war between the two realms, they had all witnessed that these seemingly young youngsters were actually very powerful. If they had to snatch him away, not only would they suffer heavy losses, they would also publicly become enemies with Imperial Madam. They must be silly to do such a stupid thing. Hence, someone suggested, Imperial Madam and City Lord Xiao are on good terms. If City Lord Xiao were to speak to Imperial Madam, I believe Imperial Madam would definitely hand over the palace lord of the secluded palace. These words were indeed a little too forceful. But other than this, they had no other way. City Lord Xiao couldn't help but laughed when he heard that. That solemn and dignified face, even though he was smiling, it was filled with a terrifying murderous aura. "What a good plan you all have, to let me be the one to stand out and serve you." He slammed the table fiercely as he stood up. This city lord sincerely invited Imperial Madam over to help. After Imperial Madam resolved the war between the Heaven and Earth two realms, now you want this city lord to repay kindness with enmity and be ungrateful? This slap on the table shook the entire banquet as it instantly turned silent. Everyone's gazes congregated onto City Lord Xiao. Silence for a while. The people from the Heaven Realm said with a dark expression, "City Lord Xiao, even if that's the case, the crime of the Palace Master of Secluded Darkness Palace is an undeniable fact. Now that we are in the land, if we want an explanation, we naturally have to ask you, the person in charge of the land." This person's voice was firm and powerful. His tone was also a little sinister. It was as if he was suppressing too much anger. City Lord Xiao looked over. He clashed with that person. He was about to speak. Suddenly, a clear voice came from afar. "If you want an explanation, just look for me. Why make things difficult for City Lord Xiao?" The girl's voice was clear and pleasing to the ears. It was very soft, but it easily suppressed all the voices in the hall. Outside the garden, a girl in a fiery red dress slowly walked over. The girl's black hair was not tied up, so it casually and lazily scattered behind her, like a waterfall pouring down in torrents. But even with such a simple outfit, amidst the flowers, it was still dazzling, causing everything around it to lose its splendor. Yi Qing Luo slowly walked towards that person from Heaven Realm. Her footsteps were steady and calm, like a lotus. Step by step, it was like a heavy beating drum, pounding on that person's heart from Heaven Realm. Under this oppressive aura, that person subconsciously took 2 steps back. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled up as her long and narrow eyes rose. "Whatever you need me to explain, just tell me." She casually brushed her sleeves. Exquisite side profile, noble and elegant. Her temperament was out of this world. TXT 2016 website. Over 100,000 mobile phone can directly download TXT. Chapter 47-43. The person is in my hands. Yiqing Luo continued calmly. There's no use asking City Lord Xiao. Why don't you ask me directly? The man from the heaven realm paled slightly, but he seemed to have thought of something. He clenched his fists tightly and said word by word. Then, Madam Emperor, please hand over the palace lord of the secluded palace. No. The girl's answer was straightforward and decisive. The expression of the person from the heaven domain changed again. Our heaven domain has lost many elites, relatives, and comrades because of the palace of seclusion. It is the same for the land domain. Shouldn't Tinyu Palace give us an explanation? Are you going to protect Tinyu Palace? His voice paused slightly. His eyes became much sharper as he said word by word. Or perhaps you and the Palace of Gloomy Shadows were originally in cahoots. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as her expression didn't change as she smiled. What have those losses got to do with me? Back then, didn't you choose to join the Run family and attack the land because of the ambitions of the Netherworld Palace? This is your own choice. Who can you blame? You chose war, so don't blame the war for causing you to lose your loved ones or comrades. This is your own choice, so you should pay the price for your choice. The girl's voice carried a bit of ridicule. Just because I saved all of you, I have to bear the consequences of your choices? Why? She questioned him word by word. Soon after, he sneered and said, just because your faces are big? The people from Heaven Realm were so humiliated by Yiqing Luo's words that they couldn't say a single word. She was angry, annoyed, and embarrassed. But when he met the young girl's eyes, which were as clear as water, he didn't even dare to say a word. Yiqing Luo's eyes were curved, obviously smiling. However, the words that came out of his mouth were incomparably sinister. I have no obligation to care about your feelings. The palace master of the secluded Darkness Palace was captured by me. How you want to deal with him is my problem. If you don't like it, you can ask me with your strength. That arrogant and confident look, it was as if it was not afraid of anything in the world. He also did not care that the people of the Heaven Realm would join forces to counterattack. Counterattack my ass. In that great battle, the people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness came one after another. Only Yiqing Luo was able to go against the secluded palace. They can snatch things from Yiqing Luo, not to mention it was said that within Yiqing Luo's body, there was a divine phoenix, profound jade heart. That's a talent that's out of the ordinary. The people from the Heaven Realm could only grit their teeth and did not speak again. Yiqing Luo's appearance lowered the atmosphere of the banquet by another degree. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about everyone's feelings. She walked towards the World Group's position. Because the World Group's performance in this battle was extremely outstanding, although he wasn't too interested in this kind of banquet. But for Xiao Yin's sake, there were also 20 to 30 people here. Xiao Jin and Mo Yuing were the leaders. It was about Gu Jingyu. At the banquet, no one dared to mention it again. Yiqing Luo and City Lord Xiao exchanged a few words and changed the topic. The people from the Earth Domain calmed down the atmosphere again. In this battle, the Earth Realm had also suffered great losses. However, compared to Heaven Realm, this time it could be said that the Earth Domain had undergone a qualitative change. Between the Earth Realm and Heaven Realm, they were originally separated by tens of thousands of miles. And this battle caused the status of the Earth Realm to soar. It could almost be said that it was on par with the Heaven Realm. Yiqing Luo ignored everyone's compliments. Sitting on her own seat, she chatted with the brothers of the World Group. This chapter in viewing starting Event Zue new chapter section. Please arrive Tang, Kushop, mobile address. Chapter 4744. Xiao Jin knocked on the table and came over. The two elders of the witchcraft family are still waiting for you to release him. Do you think we should release him? The witchcraft family wanted to take old Wu away. However, Elder Wu hoped that Wu Che could return to the witchcraft family. Wu Che was also a member of the witchcraft clan. If Wu Che was allowed to roam freely, what if Wu Che did something? Perhaps the next to be condemned by the masses would be the witchcraft aristocratic families. The witchcraft aristocratic families had always been a place that did not participate in any disputes. He didn't want to get involved in any conflicts between factions. The world group wasn't willing to let them go. The witchcraft aristocratic family was also helpless. He could only stay in the Qiao residence, waiting for Yi Qing Luo to speak. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose. Why should we release them? Since they have chosen to accept Old Witch and Wu Che, then they should be responsible for what Old Witch and Wu Che had done in the past. Venerable Wu had placed a witchcraft spell on her brother, controlled him for so many years. Is it something that could be easily let go of? They had to stay behind to cure Long Yinzhan. There was also Tong Ziqing. Automatically refreshes at 6 am, 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 automatically refreshes at 6 a.m. Venerable Wu, do you think I will give you the chance to betray me? Gu Jingyu was not in a hurry, nor was he angry because Venerable Wu wanted to betray him. It was as if everything was just a fleeting cloud in his eyes. Everything was under his control. Elder Wu's expression suddenly changed. His malicious eyes were filled with astonishment. You, what did you do to Che Gu Jingyu chuckled and waved his sleeve. Dense, profound, energy clashed with the dazzling, profound light that filled the sky. Meanwhile, the lady whose neck was clutched by Yi Qing Luo suddenly stiffened. Then he curled up in pain. He groaned in pain. A few wisps of mysterious qi flowed out of his body. Che Elder Wu's expression froze as he involuntarily called out Wu Che's name. Looking at Wu Che's pained face, he did not look him in the eye. Venerable Wu was almost going crazy. Yi Qing Luo looked at Wu Che indifferently. His emotions did not change at all because of her pain. On the contrary, her gaze was cold and indifferent. He didn't seem to care about the tricks that Gu Jingyu wanted to play. Yi Qing Luo, let go of Che she's in pain, she's in pain. Old Wu looked at Wu Che's expression, and his heart was in so much pain that he was about to die. She waved her finger. The sky was filled with voodoo insects. It quickly spread across the entire battlefield. The profound practitioners of the heaven and earth world had long been led by the world group and some large powerhouses away from the boundary of the battlefield. However, the voodoo insects did not retreat just because they left the battlefield. Instead, they quickly rushed towards the gates of the Earth Realm. The voodoo bugs. Could it be that it wanted to swallow the entire land? Every profound practitioner's heart skipped a beat. Without me, these voodoo insects would have destroyed the entire Earth domain. Venerable Voodoo had obviously given up. If it wasn't for me, that little blue dragon would definitely die. Yi Qing Luo, you don't have the right to negotiate with me. Let go of Che otherwise, she didn't finish her sentence. The terrified screams of the people outside the battlefield broke the somber atmosphere of the battlefield. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as her pink lips curled into a ridiculing cold arc. But you're even less qualified to threaten me. This chapter and viewing starting events of a new chapter section, please arrive Tang, Kushop. Mobile address. Chapter 4745. It was an aggressive stance. Obviously, no one in the Qiao estate could stop that wave of energy from approaching. Everyone present couldn't help but hold their breaths in concentration. What kind of daring person dared to come to the Qiao Manor at this time to find trouble? Bang! A deafening explosion resounded throughout the entire back garden. Shortly after, a dozen white-robed figures flew over in a grandiose manner. Each of them held a silver basin in their hands. When that group of people stood in the center of the banquet, everyone was extremely shocked. It's people from the Underworld Palace. Why are those lunatics from Underworld Palace here? Don't they not care about the affairs of the world? Why did you suddenly come to the Qiao residence? From the looks of it, I'm afraid that the Qiao mansion has done something to offend the Hell Palace, right? Those lunatics from the Underworld Palace don't care when or where. If you offend them, they'll bite you like mad dogs. Shoo, keep your voice down. Are you afraid that they won't bite you to death? The crowd discussed among themselves as they looked at the dozen or so old men in front of them. Their expressions were strange and inquisitive. He did not understand the purpose of this group of lunatics coming to the Qiao residence. Led by Old Lai, the people from the underworld palace looked around, when his line of sight fell on a certain place. Following that, they charged towards the world group in an orderly manner as they swarmed forward. "You're here to seek revenge on the Imperial Madam?" The person from the Heaven Realm who had been bullied by Yi Qing Luo earlier couldn't help but voiced out. The gaze he shot towards Yi Qing Luo was filled with resentment and cold ridicule. "Imperial Madam has quite a lot of personal enmity. Because of your personal enmity, it has swept away all of our excitement." The man sighed again and glanced in the direction of City Lord Qiao. "This is City Lord Qiao's mansion. The people from the Underworld Palace are simply looking down on City Lord Qiao by barging in like this." That person's words sounded like mockery, but in reality, he was trying to sow discord, in an attempt to incite everyone present to dislike Yi Qing Luo. He also wanted to use City Lord Qiao as a hostage. As for the reputation of the Hell Palace, as people from the Heaven Realm, they had heard of it before. Those who were targeted by this group of lunatics basically had a 90% chance of dying. Yi Qing Luo had offended them. Even if the D-Zune came personally, this group of lunatics might not even give him face. Thinking of this, the person from the Heavenly Realm revealed a pleased expression. "Madam, this is your personal vendetta. You should settle it yourself. Don't drag us into it." The man was still fanning the flames. Bang! A tyrannical Xian wave rushed over. The person who didn't expect that someone would dare to make a move at the Qiao residence's banquet couldn't avoid it in time. He was struck by the Xian wave and took 2 steps back, falling onto the ground like a dog eating mud. "Shut up." The old man from the Underworld Palace glared at him fiercely. "Did your daddy talk to you? Stop farting. Do you think I won't tear your mouth off?" Those arrogant and vulgar words. It was definitely a madman from the Hell Palace. The man from the Heaven Realm felt embarrassed to be treated like this in front of everyone. Just as he was about to explode, they saw the group of old men who were called lunatics, the group of old men who looked at the people of the Heaven Realm with fiendish expressions. Their faces were full of smiles as they looked at Yi Qing Luo. The leader passed the silver basin in his hands to Yi Qing Luo. "Madam, take a look at this. What is this?" That look was as though he was presenting a treasure, waiting for praise. The group of people from the Heaven Realm looked at the people from the Hell Palace in astonishment, unable to believe their own eyes. Chapter 47-46. According to the rumors, wasn't the Underworld Palace a bunch of lunatics who didn't recognize even their own kin? They were proud and arrogant. In the past, many large forces had tried to rope them in. All of them had their heads blown off, even if he wanted their help. He was also kicked out of the door. They were a bunch of unreasonable lunatics. But this bunch of lunatics was actually being so kind to a young girl. In fact, it could be said that he was fawning over her. Curry favor? It was impossible for this word to appear in the mouth of a madman from the Underworld Palace. But now it was right in front of them. The people from the Heaven Realm were extremely shocked. However, the people from the Earth Realm were extremely calm. Most people in the Earth Domain knew that the Emperor Lady had a good relationship with the Hell Palace. When the Emperor's wife first arrived in the Earth Domain, he was the Lord of Hell of the Underworld Palace back then. He even worked as a handyman for Pei Sheng, Madame D's friend. They were already used to it. Okay, look at that group of people from the Heaven Realm. They look like they have never seen the world. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled up slightly. Her eyes sparkled as she gave a faint smile. "You think that I don't dare to kill you?" She tilted her head, and her gaze slowly fell on Gu Jingyu. Looking at the expression on Gu Jingyu's face, there was a hint of surprise. The girl's smile became even brighter. "The person I need is Elder Wu, but the person I'm unhappy with is also Elder Wu." Her faint voice was as clear as a bell. Her fingertips gently caressed Wu Chei's neck. In the next moment, her sharp nails would pierce through Wu Chei's neck. "Unfortunately, I can't touch old Wu." Yi Qing Luo sighed helplessly, "So, I can only use you to vent my anger." Yi Qing Luo. Elder Wu did not dare to act rashly. His turbid old eyes were filled with panic and unease. Let go of Che. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as her gaze was calm and awe-inspiring. Since Elderwood already collaborated with the Palace of Darkness long ago, then you should know the objective of the Palace of Darkness. She smiled and glanced at Wu Che, whose face was deathly pale. The smile on her lips bloomed like a sweet rose. Bright and flamboyant, it was indescribable. What the Netherworld Palace doesn't like the most is having a weakness. For example, this Palace Master of Dark Abyss Palace. What he hates the most is being tied down. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. Her gorgeous face was filled with an innocent expression. Why don't I help you get rid of this burden? As the girl spoke, her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. There's no need to thank me too much. After all, you've given me so many great gifts. Just treat this as a gift in return. There's no need to thank me. The second half of the sentence. She was still smiling. However, there was not the slightest hint of a smile in her long and narrow eyes. Instead, he slowed down the speed of his words. Every word pierced into one's heart. Old Wu's expression changed as he shouted sternly, "What are you trying to do? Let go of Che." She leapt up and flew towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo didn't move as she stepped on a pile of gravel. Densely packed witchcraft bugs crawled around her feet, quickly eroding the entire battlefield. Facing Old Wu's swift attack of eagle claws, her smile became even more radiant. The icy coldness in between her brows slowly seeped out. TXT 2016 website. Over 100,000. Mobile phone can directly download TXT. Yi Qing Luo sat for a while and decided to leave to take a look at the witchcraft aristocratic family. Just as he was about to move, suddenly, dark clouds rolled over the horizon. It was as if the sky had been dyed with ink. Dark clouds covered the sky. It made one feel inexplicably depressed. This unforeseen event caused everyone present to raise their heads and look toward the horizon. Generally speaking, the heavenly dew phenomenon definitely meant that something major had happened. Under the rolling dark clouds in the sky, lightning flashed and thunder roared, as if a huge hole had been torn open in the sky. A ball of cold, profound light was faintly discernible. Following that, a row of orderly figures appeared in midair. In the blink of an eye, he was already standing in the center of the banquet. He was clad in black armor and wielded a black spear. His aura was dignified, and a hurricane surged. A powerful aura instantly enveloped the entire space. This caused everyone's faces to turn pale with fright. His gaze was filled with astonishment and shock as he stared at the row of figures that had suddenly appeared. Even the representatives of the large forces in the heaven realm couldn't help but feel their hearts thump as they panicked. There were 10 people in front of him, standing ramrod straight, and the profound waves on each of them were so majestic and thick that it made one shocked. TXT 2016 website. Over 100,000. Mobile phone can directly download TXT 2016. Chapter 4748. This group of people, the armors and aura on them looked extremely familiar. Yi Qing Luo also felt that she had seen them somewhere before. Among the crowd, someone pointed to that direction and exclaimed, God's Guard Team. It's the legendary God's Guard Team. This exclamation instantly caused the entire banquet to burst into an uproar. Those who didn't know had a dazed look, and those who knew looked at those 10 people in disbelief and couldn't even scream out. God's Guard Team? Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly, not understanding what the so-called God's Guard Team represented. Old Man Song's voice came from her mind. God's Guard Team is the highest-ranked army in the God Realm. No matter if it's in the Earth Realm or Heaven Realm, they are equivalent to a legendary existence. Belong to God Realm, which meant that these people were from the God Realm. People from the God Realm came to the Earth Realm? How could this be possible? But the 10 people in front of her were emitting power and aura. Even those large powerhouses in the heaven realm were as tiny as ants in front of them. People who could possess such power and power. Would they impersonate the God Realm's guard team? They are real. Old Man Song continued. The aura on them is indeed from the God Realm. Yiqing Luo's expression turned solemn. Isn't it said that there is no one left in the God Realm? Which means to say that there hasn't been any activity in the God Realm for hundreds of years. Why would they appear here with such great fanfare? She paused for a moment as her heart suddenly trembled. Could it be that the God Realm and the Palace of Gloom have reached some secret deal? The mastermind of the Palace of Gloom is from the God Realm. If he really has that ability and is related to the God Realm's guard team, then he wouldn't have been hiding in the dark for such a long time. And it's impossible for him to start plotting for Nirvana Realm. Hearing Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo suddenly had a guess. Yesterday on the battlefield, the mastermind of the Palace of Gloom made use of Gu Jingyu's body to exchange blows with me. I feel that the opponent's ability isn't particularly strong, at least not as strong as Xian. The person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness is actually increasing his strength step by step, right? Therefore, I started from the lower realms of the Nirvana realm. As my strength grew, I slowly gained control of the Heaven realm and then the God realm. Old Man Song replied very straightforwardly. The God realm is impossible. The God realm is not as simple as you think it is. Yiqing Luo's gaze once again fell onto those 10-men team with majestic, imposing manner. Then tell me, these people openly came to the Earth boundary. What are they trying to do? Let's wait and see. Old Man Song pondered for a moment. If the Divine Guardian Squad really wants to do something, none of us can stop them. While the two were talking, the captain of the Divine Guardian Squad, Ru Ju, swept his gaze across the crowd. Finally, his line of sight stopped at a certain place. A group of people walked straight ahead. Almost instinctively, the people around him moved aside and made way for him, until the 10-man team stopped at the World Group side. The iron-armored tough guys God's Guardian Squad's solemn gaze slowly fell onto Yiqing Luo. That gaze was bone-chilling. It was impossible to tell what he was feeling. The surroundings were in complete silence. Yiqing Luo and the God's Guardian Squad's eyes met for a moment. She realized that the God's Guardian Squad's target was her, Yiqing Luo. Suddenly, she felt a little flustered. TXT 2016 website. Over 100,000 mobile phone could directly download TXT 2016. Chapter 4749. The surrounding crowd's breathing started to congeal. Pairs of different expressions looked at the strange scene in front of them. Why did all of them run over to look for Yiqing Luo? Hell Palace was. Today, the God Realm's God Guardian Squad actually came to look for Yiqing Luo. Was a good thing or a bad thing? Everyone's hearts were complicated as they held their breaths and stared at the God Guardian Squad, waiting for them to state their intention. Until the God Guardian Squad walked towards Yiqing Luo in an orderly manner. Their breathing seemed to have stopped. Silence for a moment. The young lady dressed in red slowly curled her pink lips as her long and narrow eyes curved as she spoke in a tranquil voice. Everyone, what's the matter? There wasn't much emotion in the young lady's voice. Totally not, because the other party was from the God Realm's God Guardian Squad. So she didn't fawn or fear them, as though she was facing ordinary people, extremely calm and indifferent. The God Guardian Squad's captain could tell the calmness in the young lady's tone. There wasn't any trace of fear or panic on the young lady's alluring face. A meaningful look gradually appeared in his sharp eyes. You Yiqing Luo. When the God Guardian Squad's captain opened his mouth, it brought along endless pressure. It made the entire banquet seem to be shrouded by 1,000 catty, huge rock. Everyone instantly felt stuffy. The brothers in the World Group all turned pale as they sat on their seats, unable to straighten their backs. This was the prestige of a strong practitioner. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept past everyone in the World Group. Her long and narrow eyes overflowed with a chilly intent. She tapped her fair fingers lightly on the table. A paw sound was heard. It broke the strange silence. The young lady slowly stood up. Her posture was languid and relaxed. Her blazing red robe was like a dazzling flame. Her cold and charming eyes stared straight at the 10 people in front of her. She enunciated each word coldly. Since all of you are from the God realm and have such status, why do you have to deliberately show off your strength in such a small place like the Earth domain? The young lady's actions and the words she said were already considered as audacious. It made the surrounding crowd couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Wasn't Imperial Madam too daring? The God Guardian squad actually dared to slam the table and berate them. Wasn't she afraid that the God Guardian squad would slap her to death? No matter how powerful the Imperial Madam was. If he encountered someone from the divine world, wouldn't he still have to obediently admit defeat? The Heaven Realm's people who had been berated by Yi Qing Luo earlier couldn't help but laugh out loud. You really think you're somebody? She was arrogant in front of us because we owed her a favor and didn't want to bother with a woman like her. But that's the God World's God Guardian squad. The God Guardian squad's captain apparently didn't expect Yi Qing Luo to be so daring. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's gaze, it was filled with different emotions. Just as those people from Heaven Realm were prepared to see Yi Qing Luo become a joke, to see how the people from God Realm would trample on Yi Qing Luo. The 10 members of the Divine Guardian Squad actually withdrew their auras. Following that, he looked at Yi Qing Luo expressionlessly and said word by word, "There's a letter for you here." The captain of the Divine Guardian Squad waved his hand. A letter landed in front of Yi Qing Luo. The golden envelope floated in the air. The girl slowly reached out and caught the envelope. The 10 men from the Divine Guardian Squad stood silently by the side, waiting for Yi Qing Luo to read the letter. As the 10 men from the Divine Guardian Squad withdrew their auras, everyone's pale faces gradually turned for the better. The Heaven Realm's people who sneered suddenly turned red. They looked at the Divine Guardian Squad in disbelief. Chapter 4750. He was slapped in the face again and again. Those people from the Heaven Realm were all dumbfounded. It was one thing for Hell Palace to express their goodwill towards Yi Qing Luo. Why was it that the high and mighty God Realm's God Guardian Squad didn't get angry at Yi Qing Luo's provocation? Instead, they obeyed her words. This is no longer in line with the noble and elegant persona of the God Realm. But he had to admit it. When Yi Qing Luo stood up and faced those 10 awe-inspiring and dignified God Guard squad, not the slightest bit inferior nor was the slightest bit of light suppressed still shining brightly, comparable to the stars automatically refreshes at 6M automatically refreshes at 6M automatically refreshes at 6M automatically refreshes at 6M automatically refreshes at 6th woman from the witchcraft family's expression changed slightly, but her tone was still rather gentle. Young Miss Meow, if your friend has any conflicts with the witchcraft family, the witchcraft family will take responsibility. She paused and continued. But right now, these 2 people are people who were expelled from the witchcraft family, and now they are related to the culprit behind the war between the 2 worlds, so no. Miao Xianxian shook her head persistently. Everything, wait for Sister Qing Luo to come back and tell her yourself. Witchcraft family. An unfriendly voice came from behind Miao Xianxian. A woman in a light blue dress gently placed her slender hand on Miao Xuanxuan's shoulder and pulled both Miao Xianxian and Wu Che behind her. The woman looked gentle and harmless. However, her bright eyes were domineering and unreasonable. Does the witchcraft aristocratic family think that this matter can be resolved so easily? Miao Xianxian glanced at the woman beside her. She knew that this woman was called Yin Xiao Yi. He was a member of Sister Qing Luo's mercenary group and had a good relationship with her, even if they hadn't interacted much in the past. Perhaps they knew each other from their previous lives. Miao Xianxian was not disgusted by the intimacy of a woman. The witchcraft aristocratic family frowned slightly. "Miss, what do you mean?" Yin Xiao Yi scoffed lightly. This grandmother and granddaughter pair, They have done so many atrocious things with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. If you take them away just like that, how are you going to explain to those profound practitioners who died because of them? The woman's voice was clearly not loud. His tone was full of questions. His aura was very oppressive. Also, Yin Xiao Yi's gaze darkened slightly. His eyes seemed to be covered with a thick layer of coldness. During the battle between the heaven and earth world this time, Elder Wu had used the forbidden witchcraft goo to refine the witchcraft goo worms, injuring many cultivators and our brothers in the world group. When the regiment commander was so young, he was poisoned with the heart-devouring goo. He had become a puppet of the Palace of Darkness, standing on the opposite side of them. And Ziqing, just now, Ziqing nearly injured the world group's brothers. All of this was because of Elder Wu. What qualifications did the people of the witchcraft family have to snatch people from their hands? When Yin Xiao Yi looked up again, the corners of her mouth curled into a mocking sneer. So, since the people from the Wu Gu family have acknowledged the identity of Elder Wu and Wu Gu, then don't you intend to clean up the mess they created? Not only they're the world group, there are also quite a number of witchcraft Gu that had already scurried towards the cities in the Earth domain. Apart from the Miaogu aristocratic family, only the witchcraft aristocratic family could help. End of this chapter viewing the starting lineup. Say, Shin Sichikar section, please arrive. Tang Ku agent, mobile address. Chapter 4751. From the attitude of the Divine Guardian Squad. There shouldn't be any ulterior motive for Yiqing Luo to go to the God Realm. There would definitely be benefits if she went to the Heaven Realm. But the direction of the invitation. Yiqing Luo's face was solemn as she shook her head. Not going. The captain of the Divine Guardian Squad had not expected that someone would reject the invitation of the acting God Emperor to the people from the lower realm. It was a great honor. Many people had exhausted their blood, sweat, and tears, but were not even qualified to go to the God Realm to take a look. This young lady was personally invited by the acting God Emperor. Instead, she was rejected. This was probably the first time since ancient times. The captain of the Divine Guardian Squad was stunned for a moment before he regained his senses and spoke in a cold voice. Yiqing Luo, this letter is a sign of respect from the acting God Emperor. I am not asking for your approval, but just informing you. The captain's voice had obviously raised by a lot. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she squinted her long and narrow eyes, looking at him with a smile, yet not a smile. Her fair hands gently pushed the crowd in front of her aside. She slowly walked out from between the seats. That fiery red dress was like a blooming rose, bright and moving, unparalleled. It further accentuated the young girl's devastatingly beautiful face and added a bit of soul-stirring charm. The young lady crossed her arms in front of her chest as she slightly raised her head, revealing her beautiful and slender neck. She gave a smile which didn't look like a smile. Are you threatening me? No, I'm just telling the truth. The captain's voice was cold. If you don't obey, we can only offend you. The Divine Guardian Squad from the God Realm. Even if it was just a few simple sentences, there was a suffocating sense of oppression in them. Yiqing Luo raised her slender brows as her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule. Indeed, simple and crude. Don't tell me the God Realm uses this kind of method. The young lady's tone was filled with ridicule. The captain's expression didn't change. In the God Realm, ability is the right to speak. If you have the ability, you can choose to resist. The meaning of his words. If they were to take action, they would absolutely not show any mercy. Anyway, she could resist however she wanted. Their aim was to complete the mission. Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixed on the Divine Guardian Squad for a long time. Suddenly, he chuckled. In an instant, all the colors in the surroundings paled in comparison. Resist? There are 10 of you. If I were to resist, wouldn't I be asking for trouble? Yiqing Luo laughed lightly as she put down her hands that were wrapped around his waist. Even if she resisted, she could resist. But there were so many people present, it would be easy to implicate them. Especially the brothers of the world group. I'll go with you to the god world. As soon as the girl's voice fell, the world group cried out in shock. Qing Luo, Madam Qing Luo, I don't even know why I invited you. Why are you going? What if God Realm is also collaborating with Secluded Palace and intentionally baited you? Yin Xiao pulled Yi Qing Luo's arm. You're not allowed to go? A mere Tenyu Palace is nothing in the eyes of the acting God Emperor. The captain of the God Guardian squad glanced at Yin Xiao and said expressionlessly, we cannot judge the thoughts of the acting God Emperor. In any case, I can't go. Yin Xiao stared at the guard captain as she directly stretched out her hands and hugged Yi Qing Luo. Let's wait for the Overlord to come back first. Let's not go anywhere now. Looking at the young lady's worried eyes, Yi Qing Luo's expression turned gentler. She patted lightly on Yin Xiao Yi's hand, which was hugging her. If the acting God Emperor wants to do anything to me, it's merely a matter of moving his fingers. There's no need to take such a big detour. Latest update. No pop-up window, please. Chapter 4752. In front of the people of the heaven and earth realms, he invited the divine guardian squad of the immortal realm to welcome him personally. No matter what, it was impossible for them to deliberately target her. What was the reason? He had to make a trip there to find out. Yi Qing Luo was indeed not worried that the God Realm was playing some tricks in the dark. The divine world was the divine world. It was precisely because the God world was mysterious and powerful that people yearned for it. It could be said, if these 10 members of the Divine Guardian Squad were to make a move, they could completely defeat the representatives of all the factions from the heaven and earth realms. The immortal world was just that powerful. Even with her current strength, he used his full strength. He was afraid that he would only be able to fight the Divine Guardian Squad captain to a draw. One could only imagine just how powerful was the God Realm. So, if he wanted to deal with a young girl from the lower realm like her, there was no need to beat around the bush. Yi Qing Luo looked at the guard captain. Before this, can I have some private time to say goodbye to my brothers? After a moment of silence, the captain of the Divine Guardian Squad nodded expressionlessly. Okay, thank you. Yi Qing Luo pulled Yin Xiao Yi's hand and returned to the world group's position. She didn't say much. He only reminded them to pay attention to the situation of the Palace of Darkness and the Witchcraft family. He could not let Wu Che off so easily. At the very least, he wanted the Witchcraft aristocratic family to hand over the method to cure Long Yunjan's poison, as well as the method to help Tong Ziqing recover. It was extremely fast. Gu Jingyu did not notice at all. He was forced to raise his head. The 5 slender white fingers on his neck emitted a piercing cold aura. The young girl's hand gradually tightened. She did not have the slightest intention of being soft-hearted. Gu Jingyu's expression changed. This body belongs to Gu Jingyu. If you kill me, Gu Jingyu won't live either. Yi Qing Luo gave a cold laugh as her pink lips twitched. When did I say that I wanted to kill you? Gu Jingyu stiffened. The young lady chuckled and continued. I'm sure that the barbaric Blood King will be able to find the brook spring through you, and from there, find the real you. After hiding behind the scenes for so long, it's time to come out and bask in the sun. The force on the neck of Gu Jingyu made his handsome face scrunch up in pain. The young girl's words shocked him. Gu Jingyu's eyebrows moved slightly. Mysterious Qi rippled in his dark eyes. He seemed to have thought of something, and his expression became calm once more. An expression that the girl was familiar with suddenly appeared on his handsome face. Gentle like the wind, elegant and modest. When he opened his mouth, it was a familiar and gentle voice. Yi Qing Luo. That familiar tone and that gentle expression. In front of Yi Qing Luo's eyes, in a trance, seemed to have seen the scene not too long ago, when she was poisoned by the mysterious fragrance due to the effects of the dragon cloud, witchcraft goo. The man who was as gentle as the wind had always been by her side, taking care of her. For a moment, he was dazed. It was at this moment. The corners of Gu Jingyu's mouth curled into a cold arc. By the time Yi Qing Luo reacted, A wisp of thick black, evil chi sprang out from Gu Jingyu's body. Immediately, Gu Jingyu's body became heavy as he fell onto Yi Qing Luo's body. The evil chi quickly disappeared into the forest. Chapter 4753. The crowd stared blankly at Yi Qing Luo and the God Guardian squad disappearing into the horizon. Suddenly, they heard an anxious voice. "Where's Qing Luo?" A tall figure walked over in quick steps. That cold face bore a tinge of anxiety and worry. His gaze looked around, searching for Yi Qing Luo's figure. "Sir Bone's Sovereign." The World Group's brothers immediately called out when they heard the person's voice. Bloodbone's Savage King's gaze congealed as his face turned slightly pale. This god had just felt energy from God Realm. "What's going on? Where's Qing Luo?" Yin Xiao Yi and Xiao Jin exchanged glances as she explained what had happened earlier in a concise and comprehensive manner. The more Bloodbone's Savage King heard, the colder his expression became. A pair of cold eyes slowly squinted. It was filled with an eerie chill. When he heard that Yi Qing Luo and the God Guardian squad had left, Bloodbone's Savage King's fist suddenly clenched tightly. This god is going to God Realm to look for her. Bone Sovereign, you're going to God Realm? The crowd went into a slight blank when they heard that. God Realm wasn't a place where one could just go. If the Overlord returns, tell him about today's matter and ask him to rush over to God Realm immediately. Bloodbone's Savage King's eyes sunk. This god is worried. God Realm is in danger. It was a memory from the God World. Bloodbone's Savage King still couldn't understand who was the mastermind behind all this. Feng Gu was the emperor of God Emperors, but someone had set his eyes on Feng Gu and attempted to snatch Feng Ji's daughter, Qing Luo. If Feng Gu hadn't found out the reason for that incident. Once Yi Qing Luo reached God Realm, that face, which was 80% similar to Feng Gu, it would definitely attract the attention of the person in the dark. Thinking of this, Bloodbone's Savage King's expression turned colder and colder. Feng Gu had handed Qing Luo over to him. Because she trusted him, he must protect Feng Ji's daughter on her behalf. Yi Qing Luo totally didn't know how she came to God Realm. She only knew that when she stood beside the God Guardian squad's leader and stepped into that huge hole, which seemed as though it was torn in midair. A dazzling light made her eyes turn black. Following that, she lost consciousness. When she opened her eyes, he was already lying on a soft bed. The surroundings were suffused with a calming incense. She sat up abruptly. He moved his body, but did not feel any discomfort. His profound strength and spirit power were not affected much either. However, she noticed that there was an ice-cold jade pendant hanging around her neck. She raised her hand to remove the jade pendant. Old Man Song's voice resounded in her mind. "Girl, don't touch the jade pendant. That jade pendant is used to protect you." "Protect me? What the hell? This is the God World." The profound jade heart in your body is especially sensitive to the spiritual energy of the God World. If you're unable to control the profound heart jade, it's very possible that the profound heart jade will desperately absorb the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, she was slightly stunned. In other words, if she could not control the Divine Phoenix profound heart jade properly, she will explode and die from absorbing too much spiritual energy. This is also the reason why you fainted the moment you enter God Realm. Old Man Tsang explained. Because your body cannot take such a burden. He continued, this jade pendant can suppress the agitation of your profound heart jade. It should be the acting God Emperor who realized this and specially prepared it for you. Yi Qing Luo touched the jade pendant. She immediately got up from the bed and surveyed the surroundings. Chapter 4754. What entered his eyes was a tasteful and elegantly decorated room. Furthermore, with just a glance, one could tell that the items on display were priceless. God Realm was indeed God Realm. Even the guest's room was so well decorated. She walked out of the room. she discovered that there was no one guarding the door. The surroundings were silent. There was no one in sight. But after pushing the door open, the scenery in front of her made her eyes lit up. This was simply comparable to the Century Garden. Immortal aura curled up, verdant green grass, clusters of flowers. Yiqing Luo was stunned by the beautiful scenery in front of her. The way the God Realm treated their guests was indeed very good. She walked slowly towards the cluster of flowers in front of her. Her good mood didn't last long. Under the sky, full of beautiful scenery, Yiqing Luo faintly heard some noisy noises not far away. Was there anyone? She didn't see anyone when she woke up. Now she heard some voices. Yiqing Luo quickly walked towards the direction of the sound. In an exquisite pavilion amidst the cluster of flowers, 6 women seemed to be arguing about something. The women were young and beautiful, thin and plump. There were all kinds of types. Under the colorful flowers, the women were even more alluring. But it would be better if they could restrain the jealous expression on their faces. Yiqing Luo hadn't gotten close. The women there had already sensed someone's presence. Who's there? Not waiting for Yiqing Luo's reaction, those women in the pavilion not far away had already arrived in front of her in a blink of an eye. Their speed was so fast. Even Yiqing Luo, who usually won with speed, couldn't help but be speechless. Who's there? Who dares to eavesdrop on us in the dark? The woman's voice was pleasant to the ear. As their gazes fell onto the young lady's face, a trace of shock flashed past their faces. The woman in front of them had exquisite features, as if it was meticulously sculpted. Her beauty was unparalleled and unparalleled, especially that pair of long and narrow eyes, watery and lively. The arc at the corner of her eyes was so charming. Coupled with a blazing red dress, it made her look even more noble and beautiful. Just one look, and one couldn't take their eyes off her. The women's hearts trembled, and a wary and uneasy expression appeared on their faces. Who are you? Suddenly, he was surrounded by 6 beauties. He even had a vigilant look on his face. Yiqing Luo deliberated for a moment. May I ask, what is this place? After hearing Yiqing Luo's question, the expressions on their faces changed unpredictably. The gaze he shot at Yiqing Luo was filled with jealousy. Yiqing Luo was dumbfounded. What did she do wrong? The 2 women exchanged glances. Instead of quarreling with each other, he put on an arrogant expression and sized up the young girl. He pretended to not care and said, "Little girl, no matter where you come from, now that you've entered our 100-flower garden, you have to follow the rules here." A 100-flower garden. Yiqing Luo was shocked. Did she come to the God Realm's female branch? What's going on? She had been sold to a brothel by the Divine Guardian Squad? You're a newbie. No matter what, you have to respect the seniors, in other words, us older sisters as your leader. You can't monopolize your husband. Do you understand? The women were still arrogantly lecturing him. The more Yiqing Luo heard, the stranger she felt. Why didn't she understand what these women were saying? They were obviously human words. Why did it sound so strange when she heard it? Yiqing Luo was still in a daze. The few women saw that she didn't speak for a long time. Chapter 4755. Amen, right? Couldn't understand. She really couldn't understand. Are you looking down on us? Another lady's expression sunk as her pretty face was filled with anger. Don't think that just because our husband brought you here, you are the most pampered by our husband. Which one of them who came to the 100-flower gardens back, then wasn't their husband's beloved one when they first came? But in the end, didn't they all end up like us? You won't be complacent for long. The few ladies were blabbering nonstop, noisy chatter, which gave Yiqing Luo a rough understanding of some information. These people should be the harem group of someone in the God Realm. And this place of hers was the harem garden. She appeared here and was treated as a new sweetheart by this bunch of ladies. This misunderstanding was a little too big. The carefree and relaxed mood after she opened her eyes had turned into black lines at this moment. Wait a minute. Why did the God Guardian Squad arrange her to be in this harem garden? Could it be that the God Guardian Squad had offered her to someone in the God Realm? Or could it be Actually, someone in the god realm coveted her devastatingly beautiful looks. So he found an excuse to abduct her to the god realm, to become one of the members of the harem garden. Yiqing Luo was shocked by her own imagination. She coughed lightly as she looked at the few hostile beauties in front of her that you seem to have misunderstood. But the few people in front of her seemed as though they couldn't hear her words. Their words were getting more and more unpleasant. It totally didn't sound like words that came out from a delicate beauty's mouth. Today, I must make you understand the rules of the 100 Flower Gardens. Suddenly, one of the cold and arrogant-looking ladies suddenly pounced towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was still in a daze. Suddenly, a swift and fierce palm wind came toward him. She was so shocked that she took a step back. A bam sound was heard. That palm hit empty air. The vibrating, profound wave rippled in the air, giving off a crackling roar. What the hell? This time he was serious. This cold and arrogant lady struck. The surrounding women all clapped and cheered. Sister Hongmei, that's how it should be. Teach this bitch a lesson. Let's see if she still dares to snatch our husband. You're taking advantage of your husband's doting on you to treat us elders with such disdain. You should be taught a lesson. The icily arrogant woman called Hong Mei smirked coldly. The way she looked at Yiqing Luo was obviously filled with disdain and arrogance. Yiqing Luo felt that this group of harem groups were simply crazy. Could it be that all of them were fighting for his favor until they became mentally unstable? After she dodged that palm strike, Qing Cheng's expression froze slightly. She spoke again. I'm not that person's new sweetheart. No. Hong Mei sneered. Little girl, don't be naive. The women who come here all think that they will be my husband's last. Yiqing Luo. I really am not. I don't even know the husband that you're talking about. Shut up. You didn't kneel 3 times, kowtow 9 times, and offer tea to us older sisters. Do you think you can call us husband? Hong Mei's eyes turned cold as she became even angrier. Following that, another fierce attack came down. The profound wave was swift and fierce, like a hot knife through butter, with a strong, murderous intent. This woman wanted to kill her. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk. She had taken a few steps back and explained that she was a newcomer and didn't want to make enemies in the God Realm. After all, the God Realm was different from other places. But this bunch of women in front of her were overbearing. Chapter 4756. She wanted to explain, but didn't want to listen. She even started a fight over a disagreement. Mother asterisk her. Did she really think she had no temper? Did she think she could do whatever she wanted just because she was from the God Realm? Who was she, Yiqing Luo, afraid of? Come on, let's fight. Anyway, if she didn't fight, the other party wouldn't listen to her at all. Might as well beat the other party into submission. Then the other party would probably listen to her properly. The young lady's slender fingers suddenly lifted. A flirtatious cold arc swept out from her fingertips. The glower flame fan rotated one round from her fingertips and shot out a burst of profound light. She leaped up, and the glower flame fan pressed towards Hong Mei. The young lady's figure was swift, and her action was very sudden. Hong Mei didn't expect that this seemingly delicate young lady would be so unyielding and directly fight with her. But she was only stunned for a moment. Then she sneered, "Overestimate yourself." Her sleeves waved, and the profound light was released. 2 profound waves violently collided. Powerful pressure instantly covered the entire 100 Flower Gardens. The exchange of blows between the two made Yiqing Luo slightly stunned. The God Realm was indeed the God Realm. This lady named Hong Mei wasn't weak. She was on a completely different level from the cultivators she met in the Earth Realm and Heaven Realm. Don't worry, this is just the beginning. Hong Mei saw the young lady's dazed expression and grinned sinisterly. That exquisite and beautiful face floated with a ruthless smile. As Hong Mei's voice fell, the profound waves around her surged even more wildly. A long sword appeared in her hand and fell straight towards Yiqing Luo's face. The surrounding ladies giggled when they saw this. This newcomer really overestimates herself, even daring to offend Sister Hong Mei. Sister Hong Mei is the most beloved lady of husband. Not only does husband support her, there's also the mother's family behind her. This newcomer doesn't know what's good for her. Sister Hong Mei, teach this newcomer a good lesson and let her know the rules of our 100 flower gardens. Those ladies who were watching the show smiled charmingly. Beautiful women set off the beautiful scenery. It should have been a most beautiful picture. However, he was contaminated by their arrogance and ugly expressions of schadenfreude. Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly as her long and narrow eyes overflowed with a chilly glint. Her gaze was fixed on Hong Mei. His fingertips moved. A bewitching red light blossomed on the devouring flame fan. All of a sudden, the flames on his body skyrocketed. She did not hesitate in the slightest, nor did she bother with those fancy things. One move after another, pressing down. Hong Mei had originally thought that victory was within her grasp, but she had the intention of teasing the young girl, so she did not use her full strength. But when his opponent's aura soared, she came to her senses and wanted to counterattack. But he was met with a pair of long and narrow eyes. Unbeknownst to her, the young girl had approached her face. He was stunned for a moment. He felt a sharp pain in his chest. Hong Mei's pupils constricted, and she struck out with a backhand palm in an attempt to resist. However, the young girl mercilessly stepped on her wrist. In the next instant, her body seemed to be suppressed by a powerful force, and she was unable to move at all. Hong Mei sprawled on the ground in disbelief. She couldn't believe it. In the blink of an eye, the person on the ground was her. How could this be possible? The surrounding ladies' laughter also stopped abruptly at this moment. One by one, they looked at Yiqing Luo in shock. The shock wasn't that Yiqing Luo had the ability to hurt Hong Mei, but the shock was that Yiqing Luo dared to make a move in the 100 flower gardens. Do you know who she is? Quickly let go of Sister Hong Mei. A lady berated sternly. Chapter 4757. I don't care who she is. Yiqing Luo's eyes were chilly. Her narrow eyes were filled with an eerie chill. Your attitude towards me determines my attitude towards all of you. So what if she wanted to say something? Even grabbing her hand, trying to kill her? It was a threat to her life. Even if the Heavenly Emperor came, she would still beat her up. Are you looking for death? A newcomer dares to be so overbearing? The women's expressions turned ugly as they pointed at Yiqing Luo and started scolding. If you don't let go of Sister Hong Mei, don't blame us for being impolite. It formed a sharp contrast with their alluring looks. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as she gave them a glance with a smile which didn't look like a smile. You make it sound as though you are very polite now. At the same time she looked at them. Yiqing Luo was also considering their abilities. This was after all the God realm. It was the realm where the rumored God cultivators resided, even if she had the confidence to protect herself. But if she could not create trouble, she preferred to use a harmonious method to settle things. She would try not to make a move if she could. She could tell. Hong Mei should be the leader of this group of women. Making use of Hong Mei's arrogance and contempt to settle Hong Mei in the shortest time possible. The other women would have misgivings because they were unable to guess her ability. Anyway, she had the jade pendant that the God Guard squad gave her. Even if those women's profound grades were above her, they were unable to see through her ability. Yiqing Luo's plan was indeed not wrong. The women's expressions were extremely ugly, but looking at Hong Mei, who was being stepped on by the young lady, whether it was because they couldn't see through the young lady's ability or because they were worried about Hong Mei's life. They were indeed just threatening verbally, but no one dared to make a move. Hong Mei was also aware of this, as she felt the foot stepping on her back increasing in strength as her face turned pale. If you don't let go of me, if my husband sees this, he will absolutely not let you off. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. Call that whatever husband of yours out. Who do you think you are? Do you think that your husband is someone you can meet whenever you want to? Even though Hong Mei was in a sorry state, but the words she said were still very stubborn. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes curved as the smile on her lips deepened. Oh, then no one will be able to save you. She leaned forward slightly. Hongmei only felt that the foot on her back was getting heavier and heavier. Then, something cold pressed against her skin. Out of the corner of her eyes, Hongmei vaguely saw a sharp blade. Her delicate body suddenly tensed up. You dare. You can try and see if I dare to. Yiqing Luo's voice was very indifferent. If you dare to kill me, the acting divine emperor will not let you off. Hongmei heard the indifference in the young girl's tone and immediately panicked. The acting Lord God Emperor is my uncle. You could dare to treat me like this. The acting Lord God Emperor will definitely kill you. Acting divine emperor? Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows. This woman was actually the niece of the acting divine emperor. No wonder he was so arrogant. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards. That's easy. Get the acting god emperor to come and see me. The acting god emperor ordered someone to bring her to the god realm, but he inexplicably left her in the 100 Flower Gardens. Could it be that he wanted her to be like this bunch of women, to become a member of some man's harem? Who do you think you are? Is the acting Lord God Emperor someone you can meet whenever you want to? Hongmei's heart was slightly shocked, as she was shocked that the young lady actually had such a big tone. Chapter 4758. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up slightly. Between her picturesque eyebrows, there was a cold, domineering aura. Really? Then do you think if I kill you, will the acting god emperor appear for you? You dare. Hongmei bared her teeth in anger. That beautiful face was distorted. She could tell that the young lady's words were not fake. This young lady was too arrogant. But what made Hongmei's heart give birth to a feeling of horror was, when she was being suppressed by the young lady, she was totally unable to struggle, as though her body was so stiff that she was unable to move. Hongmei's heart sank, as her pupils suddenly widened. What did you do to me? She actually reacted to the abnormality in her body. This young lady, when did she do something? Yiqing Luo chuckled softly. Her peerlessly beautiful face, this smile seemed to make the surrounding flowers lose their color, bright and beautiful. Don't worry, it's just to make you more obedient, of course. If you're not obedient. Her eyes congealed slightly, as her smile deepened a few degrees coldness. Then I'm sorry, you can only go and die. Hongmei's body suddenly tensed up. The expression on her face was distorted and sinister. And at this moment, not far away, suddenly 2 men's voices were heard. What did you put her in the 100 Flower Garden for? We are all women. What are you afraid of? There's so many women in your garden. If you put her in that place, won't she be swallowed alive? What are you afraid of? The women in my 100 Flower Garden are all gentle like water. Naturally, they will take good care of her. What kind of women in your garden? Don't you have any idea? I just brought her to God Realm and was hurriedly called away by you, so I can only casually put her in the 100 Flower Garden. Their voices were getting closer and closer. Very quickly, they saw 2 tall figures walking slowly in the midst of the flowers. There was also a voice, clearly heard, that young lady entering this garden is too pitiful. What if she runs out and bumps into your bunch of women? She will probably be swallowed until nothing is left. The word was forcibly choked in his throat. That man was dressed in a bamboo-colored long robe. The exquisite embroidery showed his nobility. The astonishment on the young man's face was obvious. He stared unblinkingly at the scene in front of him, unable to believe his eyes. Behind the man, another figure dressed in a flashy pink robe also walked over. You. Husband. The group of beautiful women swarmed towards that figure. Each and every one of their voices were soft and tender. The women threw themselves into the man's embrace and sobbed. Husband, you've come to seek justice for us. Don't cry, don't cry. When you cry, your husband's heart is broken. The man hugged the surrounding women and comforted them gently. Yiqing Luo, where the hell did this peacock come from? This was the first time she had seen a man wearing pink. Furthermore, it was the pinkish-pink color. It was extremely coquettish. However, the man's androgynous face, coupled with the coquettish powder, did not look too feminine at all. Such a flirtatious peacock. No wonder he had such a harem. However, this man was really fickle. He clearly saw Hong Mei being trampled under his feet. Yet he could still use a gentle voice to appease the other women, and hug them left and right, as if he could not see Hong Mei at all. Evaluation, scumbag. Chapter 4759. Took in a harem with 3,000 beauties. He was indeed a scumbag. Yiqing Luo sized up the two men who suddenly appeared in front of her. They were also sizing up Yiqing Luo. The rosy pink man's gaze paused on Yiqing Luo's face for several breaths before his eyes lit up. Beauty. He speedily pushed the few people in his arms to one side as he gave a self-admitted flirtatious smile. You're Yiqing Luo. That gaze made Yiqing Luo had an impulse to beat someone up. She frowned. Who are you? What are you pretending to be silly for? Hong Mei, who was being stepped on, suddenly opened her mouth. That's our husband. Her tone revealed a sliver of complacency. Husband is here. You're dead meat. Saying that, she raised her head and looked at the man not too far away. Husband, save me. This slut wants to kill me. Finally, that rosy pink man shifted his gaze downwards on a Hong Mei. His exquisite brows creased unabashedly. What are you doing? The rosy pink man's face sunk slightly. When Hong Mei saw that, she immediately cried even more grievously. Husband, this new slut, she poisoned me and even attempted to kill me. The rosy pink man, that pair of flirtatious eyes, looked towards Yiqing Luo. The women by the side chimed in. Husband, you don't know how arrogant this newcomer is. Not only did she not put us, this group of sisters, in her eyes, Sister Hong Mei only wanted to teach her the rules, but she... The women were all talking at once, pushing all the problems to Yiqing Luo. Hong Mei's eyes were misty with tears as she cried quietly in grievance. She was very clear. Her husband couldn't stand a woman's tears. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about those women. No matter how they splashed dirty water on her, she couldn't be bothered to explain. She stared at the rosy pink man and frowned. You're the husband they're talking about? If little beauty wants to call me husband, I won't mind. The rosy pink man smiled as he opened his mouth. There was no trace of anger towards Yiqing Luo because of those women's words. The man next to him elbowed the flirtatious man in pink and glared at him with a warning look. What did you bring me to this place for? Yiqing Luo went straight to the point. The man in the pink robe was full of smiles. Beautiful scenery with beautiful women. However, compared to the beautiful scenery of the 100 Flower Gardens, this little beauty is even more beautiful. Yiqing Luo's foot, which was stepping on Hong Mei's back, suddenly exerted force. Hong Mei screamed in pain. The girl's eyes were clear and cold. Don't talk nonsense. Call the captain of the Divine Guardian Squad over. He had brought her to the God Realm, but had inexplicably thrown her here. Another two baffling people had arrived. What the hell is this place? Where was the noble and unattainable image of the God Realm? Disillusioned, okay? The flirtatious pink-colored man's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with overflowing interest. The God's Guardian Squad has handed you over to me, so if you have any matters, just look for me. Yiqing Luo. Could she make a move and beat this peacock into submission first? The man dressed in bamboo on the side coughed lightly. Miss Yi, we don't have any ill intentions. Let go of Hong Mei first. Not letting go. She was afraid that if she let go of this foot, the next one would land on that flirtatious peacock. The man dressed in bamboo looked slightly more serious. Actually, we don't have any ill intentions. He continued, I'm the acting God Emperor's last disciple, Feng Chongqing. This is my friend, and also one of the 3 kings in the God Realm, Ji Wuhua, Flower King. Chapter 4760. A coquettish peacock was indeed a coquettish peacock. Even his name was so coquettish. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as her gaze fell onto Ji Wuhua. You said to look for you? Being stared at by that pair of seductive eyes of the beauty. Ji Wuhua's bewitching eyes were filled with splendor. That's right, it's me. Beauty, please look at me and tell me your request. He didn't wait for Yiqing Luo to open her mouth. The next sentence was blurted out. Even if you want the position of my official wife and want me to disperse the flowers for you, I'm also willing. His eyes were burning, and his expression was as deep as the ocean. But there wasn't a single bit of sincerity in that tone. Apparently, this kind of words were often hung on his lips. But those few bewitching little flowers behind were struck by Ji Wuhua's words. Each of them called out, "Husband," in a tender manner as they shed tears of grievance. Whereas Hong Mei, who was stepped on the ground, had an incredulous expression in her eyes. She was stepped on by this slut in such a wretched state. Her beloved husband didn't care about her at all, and was even infatuated with this slut. She was like a fool. Scram. Yiqing Luo stared coldly at Ji Wuhua's androgynous face as she raised her hand. If you don't leave, I'll smash your dog head. Ji Wuhua was stunned on the spot. It was as if there had never been a woman who could show such a look of disgust under his affectionate confession. Moreover, the expression on her face didn't seem to be playing hard to get, or was it a joke? But really, if he didn't retreat further, she would really beat him up. This knowledge caused a trace of cold light to flash in the depths of Ji Wuhua's devilish eyes. The few women behind him were also astonished. There was actually someone who dared to be fierce to their husband. That slut, was she looking for death? But that slut was so fierce. Their husband definitely wouldn't like that slut. But their husband didn't have any intention of getting angry. Instead, he cooperated and shifted his feet backwards, pulling the distance between him and Yiqing Luo. Bring me to see the acting god emperor. Yiqing Luo looked at him as she said every single word clearly. It's not convenient for the acting divine emperor to meet guests now, Ji Wuhua replied. When the acting divine emperor summons you, I'll take you there. Oh, Yiqing Luo replied indifferently. Ji Wuhua was still puzzled. Why was this girl so cooperative? The young lady's voice sounded again. Then send me back to the Earth Realm. When the acting god emperor is free, come to the Earth Realm to see me. Was he trying to take her down a notch? He had brought her all the way to the God Realm. Now he stood her up again. Did he think that he was great just because he was the acting divine emperor? She was the daughter of the former divine emperor. 10,000 years ago, she could be considered as the heir to the throne of the divine emperor. Even the acting god emperor had to address her as great-grandmother when he saw her now. See or not, who didn't know how to put on airs? The girl's words once again stunned the people in the garden. Ji Wuhua and Feng Zhangqing had not expected that this young girl, who looked a little fierce, would say such bold words. But the acting god emperor meet her personally in the Earth Realm. Although the acting god emperor hadn't officially inherited the divine emperor's throne, but in the hearts of the people in the god realm, the acting god emperor had long been the real god emperor. Usually, even if the acting god emperor asked them to wait for a day and a night, they would still wait quietly on the spot. Wasn't this young lady's tone too arrogant? Chapter 4761. As for the other beautiful ladies, as they stared at Yiqing Luo, their eyes were filled with astonishment as they stood rooted to the ground. Did they hear it wrongly? This young lady was not their husband's new sweetheart, but a distinguished guest whom the acting god emperor wanted to meet. Moreover, this young lady's arrogance didn't even seem to be afraid of the acting god emperor. That was a kind of arrogance that emanated from her bones, a natural arrogance that didn't feel exaggerated at all. But what shocked them even more was, this young lady came from the Earth Realm to the God Realm. Even the Heaven Realm was like an ant that could be pinched to death with a flick of a finger. Not to mention the realm below the Heaven Realm. Even if they were a group of chess pieces that had been trained since young to please men and seek benefits for the family. Any one of them would be able to fight against 100 in the lower realms. It was imaginable, the gap between the god realm and the lower realm. But this young lady came from the earth realm, that lowly realm, to the god realm. A young lady from the earth realm had stepped on their red plum boss. Someone from the earth realm? Did they hear it wrongly, or did the young lady say it wrongly? Unbelievable. Totally unbelievable. But the next moment, Feng Zhangqing's words had confirmed the young lady's identity. Miss Yi, the passage between the earth realm and the god realm can't be opened at will, and the distance between the two realms is very far. If the acting god emperor is done with his work and wants to see you, he will have to go to the earth realm to invite you. Going back and forth will delay your time. Don't you think so? Yiqing Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her eyes were lazy and indifferent. I'm also very busy, all right? Only the acting god emperor is busy, and I'm not allowed to be busy? Miss Yi, the acting god emperor doesn't mean to make things difficult for you. Feng Zhangqing's thin lips were tightly pursed as his handsome face revealed traces of helplessness. Don't beat around the bush. Ji Wuhua pushed Feng Zhangqing away and smiled like a peacock. Beauty, you really can't blame the acting god emperor. You can only blame yourself. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and looked at Ji Wuhua with an expression that said, "Continue to make up stories. I'll listen quietly to your story." Ji Wuhua made an oath. Yesterday, the acting divine emperor postponed all matters and waited for you to discuss the war between the heaven and earth realm. However, we neglected the fact that you have just entered the divine world, and you're not used to the spiritual energy of the divine world, causing you to lose consciousness. The acting divine emperor couldn't bear to wake you up, so he let you rest for a day. So this was her fault? Seeing that the girl's expression was still indifferent. Ji Wuhua said sincerely, "Everything I said is true." Yiqing Luo squinted at his raised 3 fingers. Your god realm also plays this kind of oath trick? Wasn't the oath meant for God to see? Weren't the people of the god realm gods? Ji Wuhua said matter-of-factly, "Because you women love this kind of trick the most." Yiqing Luo. Sorry, I don't like it. However, Ji Wuhua's explanation was indeed reasonable. It was a fact that she had slept all day. How many days do I have to stay in the god realm? She asked. Ji Wuhua glanced at Feng Zhangqing and stopped him from speaking. Then he looked at Yiqing Luo smilingly. Not much, about 10 days to half a month. Yiqing Luo. Forget it, you'd better send me back to the earth realm. 10 days to half a month. Wait till she returned to the earth realm. The daylilies were already cold. There were still a lot of matters in the earth realm waiting for her to settle. Chapter 4762. Feng Zhangqing pressed his hand on Ji Wuhua's shoulder and pulled it behind him. Don't listen to his nonsense. When the acting divine emperor is done with his business, he will see you. It will take at least a few hours, and at most a day or 2. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Then I shall reluctantly agree to it. She could still accept this time. At most, he would just treat it as a day trip to the god realm. In any case, he was someone who had been to the god realm. She could brag about this for years in the lower realm. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept past those ladies who were in a daze and suddenly thought of something. But I have a condition. Speak. Feng Zhangqing nodded. Yiqing Luo took a look at Ji Wuhua and then looked at the person under her feet. I don't live in 100 flower gardens. What's wrong with this place? Ji Wuhua was unhappy. This is my proudest design. The environment is good and the scenery is beautiful. Why don't you stay here? Yiqing Luo spat out a few words in a lukewarm manner, not good in any way. Feng Zhangqing coughed lightly and said, Miss Yi, forgive me for not being able to agree to this condition. Don't tell me the god realm only has one place to entertain foreign guests? Yiqing Luo frowned and raised her delicate chin. Feng Zhangqing sighed softly. The fact that Miss Yi has come to the god world is a secret to the outside world. If others in the God world find out that a person from a lower world has come to the God world, I'm afraid those stubborn old fogies of the God world who think themselves to be virtuous and virtuous will not let this matter rest. Yi Qing Luo. So, she was a stowaway? Do I have to hide in the God realm and wait for the acting God Emperor to summon me? Wasn't this a little too aggrieved? In the entire God realm, Wuhua's territory is the safest. Otherwise, Wuhua wouldn't have sent you here in the first place. Feng Zhangqing continued to explain, but at most one day, Miss Yi, please bear with it for the time being. Yi Qing Luo. I can't take it anymore. This place was the flower peacock's harem garden. Who knew how many imperial concubines were in this garden? If she stays here any longer, every 2 to 4 hours, he would have to fight with his harem team. She was not in the mood to explain again and again that there was no relationship between her and Ji Wuhua. He was too lazy to explain. Most importantly, putting her together with this peacock to create a scandal, that would lower his status, all right? She was ugly, but the very last. Yi Qing Luo still compromised because Ji Wuhua was too annoying. It was so annoying that she couldn't help but want to strangle this peacock to death. Yi Qing Luo directly stuffed Hong Mei into Ji Wuhua's arms, gagging his mouth. Then, he turned around and left. Beauty, what are you? Before the dumbfounded Ji Wuhua could finish his words, Yi Qing Luo had already shut her room's door with a pa sound. All over his body, he sent out a message. My mood is exploding, don't bother me. Ji Wuhua was blocked outside the door. He stared blankly at Feng Changqing and said, Changqing, have I become uglier? Isn't it tempting enough? As he spoke, he touched his face full of worry. Feng Zhangqing didn't even bother to look at him. It's done. Let's go. This was the first time Ji Wuhua had suffered setback. He cried dejectedly, I don't believe that my face has lost its limits. I'm a man who relies on his face to make a living. Ji Wuhua turned around abruptly, looking at those few charming and enchanting imperial concubines. The corner of his mouth immediately revealed an incomparably demonic smile. Ladies, did you miss me? Chapter 4763. That smile caused the originally frightened beauties to blush, and their mouths began to emit sweet moans. One by one, they flew toward Ji Wuhua. Husband, we missed you so much. You haven't come to see us for a long time. Husband, the sisters have been waiting for you. Do you want to stay in the 100 Garden today? Husband, several charming women swarmed toward Ji Wuhua. No one paid any attention to Hong Mei, who was lying on the ground with a face full of resentment. All of them painstakingly moved closer to Ji Wuhua. He wanted to make Ji Wuhua stay. Ji Wuhua contentedly regained his pride as a peacock in front of this group of women. He waved his hand and said, Changqing and I still have some matters to attend to. You guys stay in the 100 Flower Garden. He paused for a moment before continuing. As for Missy just now, if you don't have any urgent matters, don't go to the east courtyard to disturb her. Yes. The women were somewhat reluctant, but they did not dare to force Ji Wuhua to stay, so they obediently lowered their eyes and responded. Feng Zhangqing glanced at Hong Mei on the ground and said, Send Miss Hong Mei back to her courtyard and find someone to give her a good look. The women, yes. The 100 Flower Garden fell into silence again. The news that a woman, who was not Ji Wuhua's new lover, had come to the 100 Garden and moved into the 100 Garden had spread like wildfire. Especially when they heard that the new girl had beaten up their boss, Hong Mei, until he was bedridden. He was very curious about the new girl, but due to Ji Wuhua's orders, no one dared to approach the east courtyard to get close to the new girl. They could only discuss and guess the other party's identity. Whereas at this moment, Yi Qing Luo, who was being discussed by everyone, was cooped up in her room, feeling extremely bored. Judging from Feng Changqing's words just now, he probably wouldn't give her the chance to go out for a stroll. After all, she was a stowaway. If someone from the other god realms were to find out, that would be troublesome. It was rare for him to come to the immortal world. He He would be trapped in the God realm for a few more hours. He could only stay in this 100-flower garden. Yiqing Luo expressed her innermost feelings. There was nothing to do. Yiqing Luo might as well regulate the profound energy within her body. He couldn't possibly come here for nothing and spend his days in a daze, right? This was the God realm. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the divine world was abundant and pure. It was a good place for cultivation. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and entered a meditative state. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth within the 100-flower garden began to gather in her direction. He meditated for about 2 hours. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt a gust of extremely strong spiritual qi coming from a certain direction, swiftly sweeping over. Yiqing Luo was reminded by Old Man Song. He reacted in time. He retracted his aura. When she opened her eyes, she saw that her room was filled with a large amount of pure and powerful spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, it was too powerful. If he absorbed it by force, her body might not be able to withstand such a load. Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly as she felt that something was strange. Why was there suddenly so much spiritual energy? Furthermore, it had suddenly appeared. That heaven and earth qi is somewhat familiar. Old Man Song's puzzled voice rang out in Yiqing Luo's mind. Familiar? I have a feeling that I have sensed this kind of aura somewhere before. Old Man Song couldn't recall the specific details. He could only vaguely feel that it was familiar. Yiqing Luo slid down from the bed. Let's go over and take a look and you will know. This is the God realm. You must be careful in everything. Old Man Song reminded. Chapter 4764. Yiqing Luo headed towards the direction where the heaven and earth's spiritual qi was surging from. That aura was extremely dense. It seemed to fill the entire courtyard. Yiqing Luo searched for a while. Only then did he confirm that the spiritual energy came from the bookshelf in her room. Based on experience, she fumbled on the bookshelf for a long time. Only then did he find a mechanism. The bookshelf suddenly moved to the side. A deep, pitch-black hole was hidden behind a bookshelf. A long flight of stairs spiraled into the darkness. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. This is a secret room. The secret room in the 100 Garden? She didn't expect that the room she was staying in was actually a completely different world. Strangely, she even found out about it. Logically speaking, Ji Wuhuan knew that there was a secret room in this room. They shouldn't let an outsider like her stay here, right? He was too confident in himself. Or was he looking down on her, thinking that she wouldn't be able to detect it? The moment the bookshelf moved over, compared to before, the profound waves were even more intense. It was as if it wanted to drown her completely. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly. Girl, don't be impulsive. Old Man Song had some misgivings. This is the God realm. The secret room in the God realm is too dangerous. Yiqing Luo's expression was grave, as though she was pondering over something. Hearing Old Man Song's words, she smiled. I know. She looked deeply at the passage. But since the acting divine emperor wants to see me and Ji Wuhua arranged for me to be in this passage, he should be sure of my safety. She pursed her lips slightly. I'll go in and take a look. If there's any danger, I'll use the teleportation secret technique to leave this place. Old Man Song was very clear that once Yiqing Luo had decided on something, it would not be easily changed. In the end, he could only sigh and say, be careful. In the pitch-black cave, one couldn't even see their own fingers. The air was still a little damp. It was cold and gloomy. Yiqing Luo didn't take out the luminous pearl for illumination. Just like that, he walked forward in the darkness. Walking in the tunnel, Yiqing Luo was almost certain that no one had stepped into this tunnel for a very long time. Because when he stepped into the middle section of the tunnel, it was a flat passageway. The smell of lamp oil could be smelled all around. Moreover, it had been a long time. Following the passageway, they made many turns. Other than the unpleasant smell, there was no danger in the tunnel. The further they went, The fluctuation of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth became stronger and denser. Then, he felt a gust of wind blowing in front of him. It was the end. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked towards the direction where the wind was blowing. Not long after, he saw a ray of clear light shooting over. Following the light, he saw an exit that could accommodate one person. Yiqing Luo wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he stood at the exit and looked outside vigilantly. After confirming that there was no one around, he quietly crawled out from the exit. This exit was built behind a group of artificial mountains. Yiqing Luo's surroundings were not only surrounded by 3 to 4 fake mountains, but also in the middle of a huge lake. There was water in all directions. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings. She did not know where she was. Or perhaps it was somewhere in the 100-flower garden. He only knew that this place had a beautiful environment and was extremely luxurious and rich. These artificial mountains were all carved from the finest jade and could almost be mistaken for the real thing. Clusters of flowers, lush and lush. This kind of beautiful scenery was not something that could be formed overnight. After Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings and confirmed that there was no one else around, she took a deep breath and leaped up from behind the artificial mountains. Chapter 4765. The Fiery Red Dress. In midair, swept away a ray of sunset glow. Perfectly landed, standing in one of the winding corridors of the lake. Just as she stood firm, both her legs were hugged by something. She heard a crisp child's voice coming from below. Fairy sister. Fairy sister. Yiqing Luo was startled at first, her eyes filled with vigilance. After hearing this voice, her brows overflowed with some astonishment. As soon as she looked down, she saw a jade-carved little guy who was hugging her legs tightly. The little one was really very small. He looked like he was only 5 or 6 years old, not even as high as her legs. The little one, when hugging her, looking up at her, was extremely adorable. But where did this little thing come from? She had just confirmed that there was no one around. And this little child, how could she leave him by the lake? What if he fell into the water? Fairy sister, why don't you speak? The little one tilted his little head, his voice crisp and clear. Yiqing Luo coughed lightly. Let go of me first. Not letting go. The little one shook his head seriously. If Cece let go of Fairy sister will run away. Yiqing Luo rubbed his little head. It was furry and soft. Towards children, she didn't hate them, but neither did she like them. After all, such a soft, delicate little one. It seemed that a little force might make him cry. But this little one in front of her made her inexplicably soften all her emotions. She pulled the little one's hand. I won't run away. Zun, really? The little one pursed his little lips, looking at her suspiciously. Yiqing Luo revealed a smile. Cece looks so cute. How can I bear to lie to you? The little one's hands that were hugging her legs slowly loosened, but his fingers were still clutching the hem of her skirt. The restraint on both legs was loosened. Yiqing Luo half squatted down, facing the little one. She placed both hands on the little one's shoulders. See, I didn't lie to you, right? Elder sister Fairy, you're so pretty. You're even prettier than those sisters in my grandfather's family. The little guy blinked his eyes and stared at her face without blinking. Yiqing Luo smiled as she rubbed his head. Thank you, Cece, for your compliment. Cece looks very good, too. Because Cece and Fairy sister look alike. Tiny One pointed at his own face and pointed at Yiqing Luo. We both look good. Yiqing Luo burst out laughing. This little guy was actually saying in a roundabout way that he was good-looking. She picked him up and looked around. Why are you here alone? Don't you have an adult with you? The little guy hooked his little hand around her neck and shook his head with a sad expression. Cece doesn't have a mother. No mother? A single-parent child? She had just heard him mention Grandpa. Could it be that he had lived with his grandfather since he was young? Yiqing Luo gave birth to a sliver of tenderness towards this little one as her voice became much gentler. Then, where is Cece's maternal grandfather? Elder sister will bring you to find him. Okay? The little one drooped his head and shook it. Cece doesn't like Grandpa. Grandpa always forces Cece to do things that Cece doesn't like to do, so Cece sneaked out today. Poor little guy. He had no parents since he was young, and lived together with his strict and rigid maternal grandfather. For a child, it was indeed unbearable. The little one suddenly raised his little head, blinking his bright eyes, full of hope. You are elder sister fairy. Can you bring me to find my mother? Chapter 4766. Yiqing Luo was stunned, looking at the little one's hopeful eyes. Her throat was suddenly blocked. She couldn't bear to let this little one down. She smiled and asked softly, Cece, do you know where your mother is? The little one's head drooped down again. I don't know. Yiqing Luo rubbed her little head and comforted, Cece, why don't you take me to your grandfather first? I'll ask him where your mother is, okay? The little one pursed his lips. His face was full of unwillingness. Grandfather won't say. Whenever Cece mentions mother, grandfather will be very angry and force Cece to do things Cece doesn't want to do. Cece doesn't like grandfather. The little one's tone was full of grievance. His little hand clutched Yiqing Luo's clothes. Fairy sister, don't send me to grandfather, okay? As he spoke, the little one's eyes turned red, looking like he was about to cry. Yiqing Luo quickly coaxed. Okay, I won't send you. What kind of little ancestor did she have? Just when she was holding the little one, she was at a loss. Suddenly, a panicked voice came from behind him. Io, my young master, why did you come here alone? Following that, a few hurried footsteps could be heard, and they were rushing over. Yiqing Luo turned around and saw an old woman in her 50s, her face full of anxiety. Yiqing Luo could tell at a glance that the old woman's clothes were all made of good quality fabric. It could be seen that this old woman's status was not low. When the old woman came closer and saw Yiqing Luo, her face suddenly changed. Who are you? She ran over hurriedly and saw the little master being carried by a young girl. She thought it was one of the family's maids. But this face, she had no impression at all. The old woman immediately became vigilant and reached out to hold the little one. But the little one hugged Yiqing Luo's neck tightly and refused to let go. Granny Feng, this is Cece's fairy sister, the fairy sister who wants to take Cece to mother. The little one put his head on Yiqing Luo's shoulder and refused to be hugged by the old woman. The old lady stared vigilantly at Yiqing Luo and then looked at the young master who was leaning on the young lady. Her heart was burning with anxiety. But he was afraid of alerting the enemy and hurting his own young master. So he could only look at Yiqing Luo cautiously. Miss, who are you? Why? Why are you at the Feng Mansion? The security of the Phoenix Mansion was so tight that even a fly couldn't fly in. This girl, how did he get in? Feng Manor? Isn't this the 100-flower garden? How did it become a Phoenix Mansion? Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with doubts, but she didn't show it on her face. Instead, she sent the little guy in her arms to the old woman. In the future, don't let a child run to this kind of place. It's very easy to fall into the water. The old lady trembled as she stretched out her hand to receive Tiny Tot, as she stared at Yiqing Luo with vigilance and cautiousness. Miss. Then you... No, I don't want that. Just as the old woman was about to hug the little guy, Xiao Budian suddenly resisted violently. He flailed his limbs about. I don't want to go back with you. I want fairy sister. I want fairy sister. The little guy was very emotional. Tears welled up in his red eyes. He cried and howled as he struggled. He accidentally kicked the old woman's body. The old woman originally listened to the little master's agitated emotions and wholeheartedly threw herself onto the little master. This kick came down. She couldn't stand properly. Her body staggered and fell into the lake at the side. Chapter 4767. Be careful. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and pulled the old lady. The little one in her arms was still kicking her legs agitatedly, totally unaware of the trouble she had caused. Yiqing Luo stabilized the old lady, but the momentum made her body unstable as she fell towards the other side of the lake. "Little master!" The old lady rushed forward in shock, but it was too late. Yiqing Luo fell into the lake along with the little one. Water splashed everywhere. The moment Yiqing Luo fell into the water, she quickly lifted the little one up. The little one didn't look big, but he was quite heavy. Yiqing Luo was somewhat strained. She managed to climb to the side of the lake and sent the little one ashore. The old lady immediately hugged the little one. "Little master, are you all right? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Let Granny take a look." The little one was well protected by Yiqing Luo. Other than his clothes being wet, there was no other discomfort. The old lady then felt relieved and hugged the little one tightly. The little one broke away from the old lady and looked at Yiqing Luo with a face full of worry. "Fairy sister, are you all right?" The old lady then turned her attention to Yiqing Luo. She saw a disheveled Yiqing Luo standing on the shore, twisting her wet robe. Although she was vigilant, but after all, she was the one who saved the little master. She said softly, "Young lady, do you want to follow the little master back to his room and change his clothes?" Look at the little master's attitude towards this lady. She was afraid that the young lady wouldn't follow. The little master wouldn't obediently change into clean clothes. Moreover, this lady's background was unknown. It would be safer to keep her by her side and let someone check her identity. Yiqing Luo naturally saw through the old lady's plan. She was just about to refuse, but her sleeve was held tightly by the little one. He had a "if you don't follow me, I won't change my clothes" attitude. Yiqing Luo's heart softened and sighed softly. "Then I'll have to trouble Granny." Forget it. She didn't have time to bring other clothes to the God realm, even if she returned to the 100 flower gardens. He was also soaking wet. She might as well follow them to change her clothes. He would wait for an opportunity to slip away. In any case, there seemed to be only this old woman and this little guy in this mansion. The old woman wanted to hug the little guy. However, Xiaobudian kicked his little legs and jumped to the ground. Then he grabbed one of Yiqing Luo's fingers and walked beside her. The old lady apologized in a low voice. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she lowered her eyes to look at the little one beside her, feeling an inexplicable warmth in her heart. An adult and a child held hands as they walked forward. Water droplets fell from their bodies. On the porcelain tiles that were laid out, it was like a blossoming splash. Not far away, behind the rockery, a few black figures slowly walked out from the darkness, staring at the direction where Yiqing Luo left. The black-clothed man at the very front said in a low voice, "Proceed according to the original plan." Yes, the old woman brought her to the little guy's room. First, he helped Tiny Tot change his wet clothes. He then went to the other rooms to search for suitable clothes for Yiqing Luo. Fortunately, the weather was hot. Yiqing Luo didn't feel cold at all. After a while, the old woman walked over with a set of clothes. The southern hall of the Phoenix Manor hasn't had any ladies staying in for many years. This is Little Master. She looked at the smiling Xiaobudian. She stopped what she was about to say and changed her words. "These are clothes left behind by my previous master. I hope Miss doesn't mind." Chapter 4768. The clothes in the old lady's hands looked very new. It was a bright red like a blooming rose. The exquisite embroidery made the flowers look lifelike. It looked graceful and luxurious. Ordinary people couldn't control this kind of beauty at all. Yiqing Luo took the clothes. The touch was very light and soft. The fabric was made of high-quality silk. When Yiqing Luo changed into this red dress, even the old lady couldn't help but reveal a stunned look. She knew that this young lady was beautiful, but she didn't expect that after changing into this luxurious dress with complicated embroidery, the whole person seemed to be even more outstanding. The luxurious long dress couldn't suppress the young lady's bright and dazzling beauty. especially that pair of long and narrow, charming eyes under this luxurious red dress seemed to be rippling with flowing lights. Fairy sister, you look so good. The little guy suddenly pounced forward and hugged Yi-Ching Luo's leg. He raised his head and stared at her unblinkingly with his delicate, jade-like face. His eyes were filled with sincerity and love for her. Yi-Ching Luo bent over and gently rubbed the little guy's head. Next time by the lake, don't fool around. Do you hear me? I hear you. The little guy nodded obediently. Yi-Ching Luo rubbed again. Good boy. The smile on the young lady's face was very bright and gentle. Even the contours of the face were extremely soft and charming. The old lady kept staring at Yi-Ching Luo, trying to see through her purpose. But on the young lady, the old lady couldn't feel any malicious intent at all. Yi-Ching Luo knew that the old lady was suspicious of her identity. She patted the little guy's head lightly. Cece, sister is a little hungry. The little guy immediately turned his head to the old lady. The old lady hesitated for a moment. Then she heard the young lady said with a smile, Sister wants to eat Cece's things. Can Cece share with sister? The little guy's eyes lit up immediately. Fairy sister, wait here for Cece. Cece will be here soon. Saying that, he kicked his little legs and ran outside. The old lady whispered behind him, Be careful, don't run on the long corridor, until the little guy's figure went into the next room. The old woman returned to the inner hall. On his face, it was no longer the benevolence and gentleness he had when facing Xiao Budian, but vigilance and coldness. Who exactly are you? Why did he appear in the foam manor? What's the purpose of getting close to the young master? My name is Yi-Ching Luo, and I stay at the 100 Flower Gardens. Yi-Ching Luo didn't hide anything. However, as for how she had passed through the secret passage of the 100 Flower Garden and arrived at this so-called foam manor, naturally, she couldn't say it out loud. He blinked his eyes innocently and shook his head innocently. To be honest, I'm not too sure why I'm here either. It's just that when I opened my eyes, I was already beside the lake. Coincidentally, I was hugged by Cece. This explanation was obviously very far-fetched. How could he have arrived at the Feng mansion just by opening his eyes? However, looking at the innocent expression on the girl's face, he swallowed the question that was on the tip of his tongue. Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo. Why do I feel that this name is so familiar? Wait a minute. 100 Garden? You are the Flower King's new pet. The old woman was confused. Staring at Yi-Ching Luo, there were some traces of pity in his eyes. Yi-Ching Luo shook her head. No, I'm just staying at the 100 Flower Gardens temporarily. The girls who stay at the 100 Flower Gardens are all the Flower King's women, especially a beautiful girl like you. The old woman obviously didn't believe it. Chapter 4769. As far as Ji Wuhua was concerned, Wild Sand Literature networked such a beautiful lady. How could he let it go? Since she lived in the 100 Flower Garden, how could she not be Flower King's woman? Wait, that's not the point. The old lady looked serious. The 100 Flower Garden is in the south of the city and the north of the city. They are quite far away from each other. Moreover, the Phoenix residence is heavily guarded. How did you open your eyes and appear in the Phoenix residence? I also want to ask you the same question. Yi-Ching Luo looked helpless. I wouldn't be surprised if I knew. She sighed and said, Cece was the first to discover me. You can ask Cece if I appeared in the Phoenix Manor out of thin air. Otherwise, why would Cece suddenly call me fairy sister? The old lady looked serious. She pondered for a moment and said, No matter if what you said is true or not, I can only ask you to stay in the Phoenix residence and wait for Flower King to pick you up. Yi-Ching Luo. Was this illegal imprisonment? And she had to ask Ji Wuhua, that peacock, to redeem her? That secret passage was obviously Ji Wuhua's doing. Ji Wuhua came. Didn't he know that she had found out about the secret passage? This was her first day in the God Realm. Did she have to make such a big fuss? However, looking at the old woman's face, although there was nothing special about her, her eyes were filled with a cold and sharp light. She paused and said, Thank you, Granny. She believed. If she refused, this old woman would definitely use a very rude method to forcefully detain her in the Feng manner. Now she agreed. At least she could be treated politely, and she could still move freely. But she had to think of a way to get back to the 100-flower garden before Ji Wuhua came. Thump! Suddenly, there was a slight noise from the next room. Something hit the ground. The old lady's expression changed and called out anxiously, "Young master." He hurriedly walked toward the room next door. When she left the room, she didn't forget to lock the door. Yi Qing Luo. Did she really treat her as a prisoner? Couldn't she follow her to check on Tiny? Why did she have to be locked up? However, the old woman had already hurried to the next room. He was worried about the little guy's safety. She gave up and did not ask the old woman to open the door. He casually pulled a chair and sat down in front of the round mahogany table. She poured herself a cup of tea and waited quietly for the old woman. About the time it took to burn a stick of incense, Yiqing Luo heard a squeaking sound, the sound of the room door being opened. "Is Cece all right?" "Granny Feng, I heard that Cece fell into the water. What happened?" Two voices sounded at the same time. The sounds overlapped. It was a young girl with a clear and melodious voice. It was a rough and dignified male voice, which was obviously the demeanor of a superior. Both sides were startled. When Yiqing Luo turned back, what entered her eyes was a dignified and handsome face. He was dressed in a navy blue brocade robe with complicated patterns, looking noble and dignified. He looked to be in his 50s. His temples were white, but he was hale and spirited. That pair of black and burning eyes flashed with an elite sharpness. That straight and handsome face. Inexplicably, there was an extreme sense of familiarity. But the other party was staring at Yiqing Luo's face without blinking. The old man's face was filled with disbelief, shock, and astonishment. In the end, even his body started to tremble slightly. It's you." The old man spoke in a trembling voice. Tears welled up his eyes as he took slightly trembling steps towards Yiqing Luo. Chapter 4770. Fengge. It's you. It's you, you're back. The elderly's hands held Yiqing Luo's hands. He used a lot of strength. Yiqing Luo wanted to struggle, but felt the trembling of the elderly's hands and the heat in his palms. She couldn't bear to do this, especially when she saw the elderly's old tears, calling out Fengge word by word. Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to be stabbed by something fiercely. She allowed the elderly to grab her. The elderly's old tears flowed as he muttered to himself. The large palms which held Yiqing Luo's hands trembled even more. Just at this moment, hurried footsteps were heard from outside the door. The old lady's slightly bewildered voice rang from outside the door. "Miss, what did you say your name earlier?" "I remember. Where did I hear your name?" When the old lady stepped into the room and saw the scene in the room, the expression on her face congealed instantly. Following that, she bowed respectfully, "Patriarch." The old lady's voice when she barged in earlier was very loud. It made the elderly, who was in tears, suddenly awakened. He stared blankly at Yiqing Luo, as his eyes seemed to be surging with some emotions. "You?" The elderly, who had calmed down, slowly let go of Yiqing Luo's hands. "No, you're not Fengge, you're not my Xiaoge. Fengge was already dead. Long dead. Ma, Patriarch, why are you here?" The old lady's tone was slightly apprehensive. The elderly slowly wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. "Granny Feng, what's going on?" Where did she come from?" Although the elderly's words were directed at the old lady, but his eyes were still fixated on Yiqing Luo without blinking, as though afraid that she would shift her gaze, as though she would disappear. That gaze made Yiqing Luo's heart ache. "Patriarch." The old lady took a look at the elderly and lowered her head uncertainly. I'm not too sure." She told him how she saw Yiqing Luo in a concise and comprehensive manner. Following that, she asked hesitantly, "Patriarchy, you know, this lady?" This was the first time she saw the patriarch losing his composure like that. And thinking back to her own guess, the expression on the old lady's face became even more solemn. What did you say her name was just now? The old man finally shifted his gaze and looked at the old woman. The old lady took a look at Yiqing Luo and immediately suppressed the various thoughts in her heart as she said word by word, replying to Patriarch, "This young lady's name is Yiqing Luo." This old servant had once heard this name from Patriarch's mouth. Qing Luo. The old man's body stiffened again. The redness in her eyes, which she had just suppressed, immediately turned sour again. His trembling hand, bit by bit, moved towards Yiqing Luo's cheek. That wrinkled face was filled with disbelief. "You're called Qing Luo? Are you really called Qing Luo?" When the elderly man's hand almost touched Yiqing Luo's face, the girl's fair hand gently grasped the old man's wrist. She looked up and met the old man's inquisitive and shocked gaze. She frowned slightly and said, "What is your relationship with Fengge?" Yiqing Luo knew that she looked similar to her mother, whom she had never met before. As for the old man in front of them, at first glance, he had mistaken her for Fengge. Furthermore, the fluctuation of his emotions was a little strange. Apparently, his relationship with Fengge was very good. Yiqing Luo had some guesses in her heart. I am Fengge's father," the old man said word by word as he stared at Yiqing Luo. Chapter 4771. The elderly looked at her face, as though he was looking at the most precious thing in the world. His heart was trembling violently. This face, this name, whether it was real or fake, it was enough. In his heart, a huge wave was set off. Yiqing Luo listened to the elderly's words. The expression on her face congealed. Fengge's father? That meant her maternal grandfather. Wait a minute. Her mother was someone from thousands of years ago. Then, how old was her mother's father? This leap was a little too big. She was a little dazed now. This was a little illogical. The elderly stared at Yiqing Luo's face. "You and Xiao Ge really look too alike." Too alike. An 80% similar appearance to Fengge, wearing Fengge's clothes. That bright and disdainful look was exactly the same as the style in her memory. If it wasn't for that pair of eyes, compared to Fengge, who had been standing on the throne for many years, there was an obvious difference. The elderly really wanted to treat this young lady in front of him as his own daughter. "Qing Luo, you're Qing Luo, right?" The elderly's voice trembled as he probed with some hope. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and nodded slowly. "Yes, I am Yiqing Luo." She paused and asked again, "You know me? Xiao Ji's daughter." As her father, how could I not know? The elderly stretched out his hand and held Yiqing Luo's hand once again. "Patriarch." The old lady's expression congealed. She took a look at Yiqing Luo and looked at the elderly and lowered her voice. "Patriarch." This young lady appeared out of thin air. Similar looks. And coincidentally, her name was Qing Luo. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? If this was just a trap to destroy the Feng residence. To old Patriarch, what kind of blow was this? This young lady's identity must be thoroughly investigated. However, the elderly didn't care, as both his hands held Yiqing Luo's hand tightly. "Even if it's fake. To let me see Xiao Gu again, or to imagine countless times. To see Xiao Ji's daughter. I am willing." The elderly's voice was choked with sobs. That was the elderly's longing for his loved ones. Yiqing Luo's eyes were slightly red, and her nose felt a little sour as she held onto the elderly man's wrinkled hand. She could feel it. The old man truly missed Fengge. "Fairy sister, this is Cece's favorite cherry blossom cake." The little guy strode with his short legs and trotted in with thumping thumps. She was also holding a plate of desserts in her hands. After rushing into the room, when he saw that dignified and tall figure, his smile immediately froze on his face. "Grandfather," Xiao Budian seemed to be frightened and suddenly stood up straight. The small plate in his hand was trembling slightly. Young master. The old woman, Granny Feng, pulled Tiny Tot to her and stroked his head to comfort him. The old man turned his head and looked at the pale-faced Tiny Tot, who was hiding beside Granny Feng's leg. He waved at him. The little guy was a bit scared, but he still bit his lower lip and moved to the elder's side with small steps. The elderly man pulled Tiny Tot over and hugged him in his arms, then made him face Yi Qing Luo. Do you know her? Tiny Tot looked at Yi Qing Luo. A frightened expression appeared on his face. Grandfather, I won't dare to play anymore in the future. Grandfather, don't punish Fairy Sister, okay? Grandfather didn't punish her. The old man patted Tiny Tot's head lightly. You like her a lot? Tiny Tot immediately shook his head. No, Cece doesn't like her. Grandfather, let her go, okay? Chapter 4772. Xiao Ji's daughter. As her father, how could I not know? The old man stretched out his hand and held Yi Qing Luo's hand once again. Patriarch. The old woman's expression was tense. She looked at Yi Qing Luo and the old man and lowered her voice. Patriarch. This lady appeared out of thin air. Similar appearance. And her name was also Qing Luo. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? If this was just a trap to destroy the Feng residence, what kind of blow would this be to the old patriarch? This girl's identity must be thoroughly investigated. However, the old man didn't care. Both hands held Yi Qing Luo's hand tightly. Even if it's fake, to let me see Xiao Gu again, or to imagine countless times to see Xiao Ji's daughter. I am willing. The old man's voice was choked with emotion. That was the old man's longing for his loved ones. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were slightly red. Her nose was a little sour as she held the old man's wrinkled hand. She could feel it. The old man really missed Feng Gu. Elder Sister Fairy, this is Cece's favorite cherry blossom cake. The little guy strode with his short legs and trotted in with thumping thumps. He was holding a plate of snacks in his hand. After rushing into the room, seeing that majestic figure, the smile on his face immediately froze. Grandpa, Grandpa. The little guy seemed to be frightened and suddenly stood up straight. The small plate in his hand was trembling slightly. Young master. The old woman, Granny Feng, pulled the little guy towards her and stroked his head comfortingly. The old man turned his head and looked at the little guy who was hiding beside Granny Feng's leg with a slightly pale face and waved at him. The little guy was a little scared, but he still bit his lower lip and moved to the old man's side in small steps. The old man pulled the little guy and hugged him in his arms, then turned him to face Yi Qing Luo. Do you know her? The little guy looked at Yi Qing Luo. A frightened expression appeared on his face. Grandpa, I dare not to play anymore. Grandpa, don't punish Fairy Sister. Grandpa didn't punish her. The old man patted the little guy's head lightly. Do you like her very much? Xiao Budian immediately shook his head. No, Cece doesn't like her. Grandpa, can you let her go? The elder's large palm covered the little guy's head and helplessly shook his head. Soon after, he raised his head and stared deeply at the young girl in front of him with slightly red eyes. I can see that. Cece really likes you. He sighed softly. This child has never let me touch his head like this. In order to make him let go of this girl in front of him. His Cece was clearly afraid of his approach, but she allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips slightly as she stretched out both her hands towards Tiny Tot, bringing him into her embrace. She lightly hooked her lips and extended her hand towards Xiao Budian. The little guy hesitated and didn't dare to move. His black and white eyes were clearly distinguishable, and he was even trying to signal her with his eyes. Yi Qing Luo was overwhelmed by his cuteness. She took the initiative to walk over and pulled Xiao Budian into her embrace from the old man's hands. Grandfather treats me very well and didn't punish me. Yi Ching Luo poked his little head. What on earth are you thinking in that little head of yours? Tiny Tot's eyes immediately brightened up. Really? You don't believe, sister? Yi Ching Luo pretended to be displeased and straightened her face. Tiny Tot shook his head like a rattle drum. I believe, sister. Chapter 4773. The old man's finger touched the girl's forehead. Yi Ching Luo could clearly feel the old man's fingers trembling slightly. The rough touch caressed her skin. After confirming that the cherry blossom totem wasn't a fake, Lin Yun immediately turned around. The old man's hand trembled even more violently. Yi Ching Luo put him down, stretched out her hand, and held the old man's palm. According to the current situation, I indeed should call you grandfather. Her pink lips curled up slightly, and her charming eyes were filled with sincerity. I don't need to doubt your identities, and she paused. How do you want to investigate? I'll cooperate. There was no guilt or other emotions on the girl's face. He was just so frank and honest. The old man held the young girl's soft hand and said in a choked voice, Okay, Grandpa believes you. Yi Ching Luo's eyes were filled with gentleness. She had indeed thought of going to the God realm to search for her origins, but he had never thought that he would still have relatives other than his mother who still existed in this world. He had never thought that he would appear in front of his grandfather in such a way. Tiny Tot's name was Feng Shi, and he was the only young master of the Feng Mansion. The old man was the master of the Phoenix Mansion. Yi Ching Luo understood. The profound practitioners of the God realm were completely capable of maintaining their appearance and form. Even if Feng Family Master wanted to meet people as a teenager, there was no problem at all. However, Feng Clan Master felt that he had lived for so long and had another grandson. He had to act like a grandfather. He learned from the words of Master Feng. Master Feng had indeed lived for thousands of years. He had also been the head of the Phoenix Mansion for thousands of years. She wholeheartedly stayed in Feng Manor, guarding the home that her daughter cared about the most. She accompanied Master Feng until the evening. Granny Feng came to call for dinner. Feng family's patriarch then pulled Yi Ching Luo's hand and left the room. Granny Feng took a few glances at Yi Ching Luo, but due to Patriarch Feng's elated mood, in the end, he didn't say anything. Yi Ching Luo was very clear that her sudden appearance was in this kind of identity. If it had been anyone else, they would not have been able to believe her identity so quickly. After all, the Phoenix Mansion wasn't an ordinary family. One wrong step, and what awaited them would be many more wrong steps. However, Patriarch Feng didn't seem to care at all. His eyes were full of kindness and kindness of an elder. Yi Ching Luo followed behind Patriarch Feng. Looking at the old man's gray hair and tightly pursed pink lips, she asked softly, Aren't you afraid that I'm just lying to you? It seemed like ever since she appeared, Feng Clan Master didn't seem to doubt her at all, especially after she revealed the cherry blossom totem on her forehead. Even more so. The old man's body stiffened, but soon he continued to walk forward. The aged voice didn't conceal its gentleness. The moment I saw you, I knew that you were little Ji's daughter. Your eyes can't lie. I believe you. 3 simple words. I believe you. This made Yi Ching Luo's eyes slightly warm. With a chuckle, she quickened her steps and held onto the old man's arm. Although grandfather trusts me unconditionally, in order to be more justifiable, I can accept any method of verification. There's no rush. The old man patted the back of her hand. We'll talk about it when your uncle comes back. Little uncle? She still had a little uncle? Yi Ching Luo felt that this trip to God Realm was really fated. She recognized one after another. Chapter 4774. After having a meal with the old man, she chatted with him for a while, until Yi Ching Luo agreed more than 10 times to stay in the Feng residence. The old man then went to rest contentedly. Yi Ching Luo played with little Feng Shi for a while. The sky was getting dark. Granny Feng left with Feng Shi. The room that Patriarch Fong prepared for her was the room that Fonga used to stay in. The room was very clean, and everything was new. She could tell that it had been cleaned and taken good care of for a long time. Yiqing Luo looked at the furnishings in the room one by one. She could imagine what kind of person her mother was. When she was lying on her mother's bed, Yiqing Luo could vaguely smell a faint fragrance. Was this her mother's smell? She smelled the faint fragrance. Yiqing Luo gradually felt sleepy. In a daze, she seemed to dream of a woman in a gorgeous red dress. The woman's back was facing her. She turned her head slightly. Illusory, the white fog blurred everything in front of her. She couldn't see the woman's face clearly. She could only vaguely hear a gentle murmur calling her name over and over again. Qing Luo, Qing Luo. That voice made Yiqing Luo's heart tightly clenched together. She wanted to open her mouth to respond, but her throat seemed to be blocked by something. She couldn't say a word. Suddenly, she opened her eyes abruptly and sat up on the bed. It was pitch black in the room. Only the light silver moonlight shone in from the open window. Yiqing Luo was gasping for air. In his mind, the image of the indistinct figure in his dream floated up. Her fair little hand slowly lifted up and pressed on her heart. That woman whose face couldn't be seen clearly. It was her mother, right? It was her mother, calling her name, right? If it wasn't her mother, why did those calls cause her heart to throb in pain? In the darkness, the young lady slowly closed her eyes to let her emotions calm down slightly, staying in the room that her mother used to stay in. Then she dreamed of her mother. Actually, it was better to think about her. Thinking about that, even if she had never met her mother, they were blood-related. Yiqing Luo was closing her eyes to calm down. Suddenly, his ears twitched. She opened her eyes. A pair of long and narrow eyes flickered with a cold light in the darkness. Someone was there. She quietly slid down from the bed and approached the open window. From this angle, he could see the surroundings of the courtyard. The courtyard was quiet. The silver moonlight shone coldly. There was no one around. Yiqing Luo's eyes congealed slightly as she felt a little strange. She had clearly sensed that there was someone outside the door. How could this be? Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly changed as she reacted. In the blink of an eye, he turned his head in alarm. However, a cold and gloomy aura came from behind. She could only see two people in black robes flashing past her eyes. In the next instant, she lost consciousness. Bang! There was a deafening knock on the door. The tall man rushed into the room and searched everywhere. Such a commotion shocked everyone else in the Phoenix Manor awake. Granny Fong was the first to arrive. Behind her were numerous Phoenix Manor guards. When she saw the room that Yiqing Luo was staying in temporarily, the door had collapsed to the ground. A tall figure stood in the darkness, emitting a gloomy aura. Granny Fong was stunned. Who are you? The guards surrounded the room, full of vigilance. Chapter 4775. From this angle, she could see the environment in the courtyard. It was quiet in the courtyard. The silver moonlight shone down coldly. There was no one. Yiqing Luo's eyes congealed slightly, feeling a little strange. She clearly sensed that there was someone outside the door. How could it be? Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly changed as she reacted. Almost instantaneously, she turned her head around alertly. But a gloomy and cold aura came from behind her. She only saw two men dressed in black robes flashing past her eyes. The next moment, she lost consciousness. Bam! A deafening sound of the door being knocked was heard. A tall man rushed into the room and searched around. Such a commotion shocked the rest of the people in the Phoenix Manor. Granny Fong was the first to rush over. Behind her were numerous Phoenix Manor guards. When she saw the room, which Yiqing Luo was staying in temporarily, the main door had collapsed onto the ground. A tall figure stood in the darkness, emitting a gloomy and ruthless aura. Granny Fong was stunned. Who are you? The guards surrounded the room. Their eyes were filled with vigilance. That man's expression was gloomy and cold, His eyes searched around and fixed on Granny Feng. "Where is Qing Luo?" Granny Feng asked. "What are you doing in Miss Qing Luo's room?" That man clenched his fists tightly as his tone became heavier. "This god is asking you, where on earth is Qing Luo?" That sinister tone and the majestic, profound energy released from his body made Granny Feng's expression sunk. "Why are you looking for Miss Qing Luo?" A guard rushed over with a torch in his hand. The bright light of the fire shone down. Granny Feng clearly saw the man who was hiding in the darkness. That handsome face. She staggered backwards. Bone Lord. The man in front of her was the fiendish-looking Bloodbone barbaric king. His expression was gloomy as his thin lips pursed tightly. His gaze was sinister and sharp. "Where is Qing Luo?" These 4 words had already exhausted all of his patience. The wind from his palm blew up, and the ground exploded into a huge, deep pit. Granny Feng naturally knew this person who used to follow Fenggu around like a shadow. She was also clear about the relationship between Bone Lord and Fenggu. But wasn't Bone Lord annihilated by Fenggu thousands of years ago? Why would he appear here? The barbaric Bloodbone King had already lost his patience. He strode into the house and rummaged around. But there was no sign of Yi Qing Luo in the house. At this moment, Granny Feng realized something, and her expression changed. "Miss Qing Luo is staying here. How could she?" The Phoenix Manor was heavily guarded. Who was able to bring Miss Qing Luo away from the Feng residence without anyone knowing? Unless Granny Feng recalled the scene when she first met Yi Qing Luo, as she narrated it concisely. Could Miss Qing Luo have used the same method to leave the Feng residence? Impossible. The barbaric Bloodbone King's face was ferocious, and the veins on his forehead were bulging. Since she promised old Master Feng that she would stay, she won't leave. Granny Feng was so scared that her face turned pale. Then, Miss Qing Luo, because of your Feng family, she has been targeted. Bloodbone Barbaric King said word by word, squeezing out from between his teeth. Granny Feng staggered. How? How could this be possible? I will go and inform the Patriarch now. What happened? Just as she was speaking, Patriarch Feng walked over with a frown. Why is there such a loud noise? Granny Feng hurriedly walked over. Patriarch, Miss Qing Luo, she is missing. Chapter 4776. This was a dim and empty place. Only the top of her head was sprinkled with bits of light, barely lighting up the surrounding environment. This should be a secret room. The air was damp, and there was also the smell of decay mixed in. It didn't smell good. Yi Qing Luo was just about to move, but she discovered that her 4 limbs were locked with a heavy iron chain. The moment she moved, the iron chain made a walala sound. Yi Qing Luo lowered her head and stared at the iron hoops on her hands and legs. For shining silver chains, not knowing where they were connected to. Yi Qing Luo, what the heck? What kind of situation was this? Forget it if she was kidnapped. The other party actually tied her up like this. Couldn't they have some God Realm style? Was there a need to do this to deal with someone from the lower realm? The iron hoops on her 4 limbs weren't considered heavy, and the chain was very long. She could drag the iron chain to stand up and walk 2 steps. It was just that this movement, the dragging sound in this silent, pitch-black darkness was really too loud. Yi Qing Luo felt that her eardrums were filled with the walala sound. Her head was hurting. She was restrained by the iron chain again. She simply sat back down. Dragging the iron chain was tiring and noisy. Even if she found the exit, she couldn't run out. She might as well conserve her energy and wait for the person who kidnapped her to show himself and probe the other party's motive. But to be able to sneak into the Feng residence to kidnap someone and successfully kidnap someone, who could it be? Yi Qing Luo didn't think for long, only to hear a squeak sound. A few figures walked out from the entrance of the secret room. In the darkness, Yi Qing Luo couldn't see clearly, but from the material and embroidery on their clothes, Yi Qing Luo could tell that they were either rich or respectable. She's awake. A 30 to 40-year-old man's voice opened. This is the woman from the Feng residence? From the looks of it, other than that face, there doesn't seem to be anything special. Are you sure? You didn't catch the wrong person? Absolutely not. I saw with my own eyes that patriarch Feng, that old fogey asked about this woman's well-being and couldn't wait to pamper her. The four of them were talking at the same time. Yiqing Luo's head started to swell. He roughly understood a little. The reason why she was kidnapped and brought here. It was related to the Phoenix Mansion. Especially, in a place like the Feng Manor, it was rare for young women to appear for many years. A beautiful girl suddenly appeared. Moreover, it could make the serious and old-fashioned Feng clan master treat her gently and have a close relationship with her, creating an atmosphere of joy and harmony. This was enough to show the importance of this young lady. So those who targeted the Feng family naturally placed their target on Yiqing Luo. The four of them came closer. Under the dim lighting, Yiqing Luo couldn't see their faces clearly. He could only vaguely see their silhouettes and the fair skin that was inadvertently exposed. There were four men. Little girl, what is the relationship between you and Patriarch Feng? Someone asked. Yiqing Luo raised her head as her squinted eyes revealed a sneer of ridicule. Haven't you all already filled in the blanks? Do you still need me to say? Yiqing Luo's attitude was indeed not considered as good. The four of them's expressions sunk as their breathing paused. One of them was infuriated. Little girl, this isn't the Feng residence. It was indeed the mysterious young lady who appeared at Patriarch Feng's side. Chapter 4777. Yiqing Luo's expression sunk as she stared at them. Who are you people? Young lady, this is the question we asked first. That man stared at Yiqing Luo as he asked again, what relationship do you have with the Feng family? If I said there's no relationship, would you believe me? Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as she asked. How could it not be related? That man walked up in big strides and pressed on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. You're the only young lady who can stay in the Feng Manor. That person came closer. Under the dim lighting, Yiqing Luo could see the person in front of her clearly. It was a man in his 40s. He had a dignified expression on his face, and it was obvious that he was a person of high status and power. The aura emitted from his body gave people a strong sense of oppression. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as her heart was filled with some doubts. Since he was of such a high status, why would he do such a risky thing? Who cares what relationship she has with the Feng clan? Tell the Feng clan master that she is in our hands. Let him exchange what we want. Another middle-aged man said angrily. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. These people bang? Did he want to use her to exchange for something from the Feng Manor? Was there something wrong with these people? All of them are in high positions, and yet they want to bang. It was the first time he had seen her in the Feng Manor, and he was going to exchange her for something from the Feng Manor. The reason they were able to use this method at the end of the road was obviously because they were at their wits' end. How could she be sure that the Feng Manor would compromise for her? I heard that the Feng Mansion has already sent out all the hidden guards of the Feng Mansion to search for her whereabouts. It seems that the Feng Mansion really values this young girl. Suddenly, a middle-aged man came in from outside the door and said with a happy tone. Hearing this, a greedy smile appeared on their faces. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she used the light above her head to see everyone's expression clearly. He felt a little uneasy. The next day, the Feng Manor declared a lockdown and searched everywhere. Everyone discussed animatedly. However, no one knew exactly why the Phoenix Mansion, which had been silent for many years, would make such a big move this time. However, after a whole morning, there was no news at all. Master Feng was so anxious that he couldn't eat or sleep. He had been longing for his granddaughter for a long time. They had only eaten one meal, so he lost her. He was such a failure as a grandfather. Feng she sat next to the master of the Feng family sullenly, and her delicate little face was full of worry. Her big eyes were red, and it was obvious that she had just cried. Granny Phone walked in and saw the old man and the young girl. She couldn't help but feel sorry for them. Yesterday, she was still thinking about it. It didn't matter if the girl was real or not, as long as he could make the old and young of the Phone Manor happy. Even if it was fake, he had to treat the girl as real. However, he was only happy for a few hours. He was lost. Furthermore, she was kidnapped from the heavily guarded Phone Manor. However, the Phone Mansion was completely unaware of this. But now, they couldn't even find him. Granny Phone sighed and walked into the room. She said in a low voice, "Master, young Master Chongqing and Master Flower King are here." Phone Clan Master's body stiffened. The face that seemed to have aged by dozens of years overnight slowly raised up. Yiqing Luo had mentioned it yesterday. She lived in the 100 Garden, and the Flower King took her to the divine world. Now, the two of them were here. Apparently, it was because of Yiqing Luo. He closed his tired eyes and said, "Let them in. Dear, this chapter has ended. I wish you a happy reading. #0 that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.